Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to episode number 46 of the Primetime Rundown. We are presented by Black Cats NYC, and this is Dirty Little Hipster. And again, ladies and gentlemen, good evening and welcome to episode number 46 of the Primetime Rundown, powered by Schraier, right here on the Eastern Observer, I-95 Sports Network, and Zingo Television, Channel 198. Alongside my co-host, Rob DeLuca, our two special guests, Casey Bryant, Larry Pertakowitz, I'm Ian Schraier. We can't thank you, our viewers, enough for choosing to make us a part of your Friday evening. As we just mentioned moments ago, our show is presented by Black Cats NYC, who recently released their new album entitled Free Cake. The song you heard, actually, Dirty Little Hipster, is the debut single off that album, and that album is now available for download on Apple Music, Deezer, YouTube, SoundCloud, Amazon Music, YouTube Music, Pandora, and Spotify. Gentlemen, hopefully we've all had a good week, but we've got a lot to get to. But first, Rob, as I said, another week in the books. How are you doing, sir?
Well, this was what a year this week was. I guess is one way to put it. A long week, dropped by some tear jerking news this morning with Tommy Lasorda. We'll get into that a little bit later. Other than that, I personally have been quite all right. I hope everyone else has been the same.
Well, Rob, I'm not sure if you're aware, but the basketball team in New York City right now that has the better record is not the Brooklyn Nets. Which I know Casey is itching to get to the Knicks, but we'll get to that a little bit later. But Casey, Larry, how are you fellas doing?
We're doing all righty, and we're hanging in. We're taking it day by day and, trying to make our corner of the sky as good as possible, right?
Larry, how are you?
I am doing good. Thank God it's Friday, and thank God Steve Cohen owns the Mets.
We're going to get there in just a second. But as I mentioned, fellas, a lot to discuss tonight. We don't have wild card this weekend, but in fact, the NFL has decided to label it as now Super Wild Card Weekend. That kicks off tomorrow. The NHL season, as we know, opens in 5 days. But we're going to start, as Larry said, thank God Steve Cohen owns the Mets, because we're going to start on the MLB circuit, where the Mets made their first big splash since the James McCann signing. And was it a splash? The front office silencing the impatience, or I should say the impatient Mets fan base, with the acquisition of arguably the best shortstop in all of baseball, Francisco Lindor and Carlos Carrasco, less than 24, I should say a little more than 24 hours ago, for their two current shortstops, or former shortstops, Ahmed Rosario and Andres Gimenez, as well as a couple of prospects that also went in the deal, who are their number 8 prospect, their number 9 prospect, right-handed pitcher Josh Wolf, and their number 10 ranked prospect outfielder Isaiah Green. And with Cano's money coming off the books, guys, it's only, as we remember, Cano is supposed to be paid over $20 million. So in fact, they're taking on $31 million of payroll. But in fact, with the Cano money coming off the books, it's actually only a net gain of $10 million. A rival executive stating of the trade that they stole him. It's a total steal. It's ridiculous. People in Cleveland should be fired for doing that trade. Rob, I want to start with the outside here. I'm going to start with the Yankee fan. What was your instant reaction to the trade? How did they get away with a steal of a trade like this?
I'm still trying to wrap my head around how Steve. I know Steve Cohen's got the money to pay pretty much whoever he wants, but to pull off a trade like this is impressive of itself. You know, you essentially gave Cleveland nothing. I mean, let's not shake our heads here. The two prospects the Mets gave up going to be very solid players, but they're not exactly Francisco Lindor or Carlos Carrasco. So just highway robbery by Steve Cohen. A great day to be a Mets fan. An oh no day as a Yankees fan. Like, here come the Mets for real. The splash. This is the first splash of what I'm assuming is going to be many moves by Steve Cohen, and it's it's a scary time to not be a Mets fan because they're coming quick.
Francisco Lindor is only 27 years old. He's an impending free agent at the end of the 2021 season. I think we could say we would expect, even though the 2021 offseason is loaded with free agent shortstops, Lindor included, that the Mets would look to lock up Lindor long term. He's one of only 4 position players with a WAR above 5 since 2016. The only other players that fit that bill are Mike Trout, Nolan Arenado, and Mookie Betts. So Francisco Lindor in some very well-deserved company. Carlos Carrasco, the other piece that came to the Mets in the deal, 33 years old, the AL Comeback Player of the Year last year after recovering from leukemia, and will also help to fortify that starting rotation now, along with Jacob deGrom and Marcus Stroman, along with, if they stay in that part of the rotation, David Peterson and Steven Matz. Now, Casey, the Mets right now are roughly around $28 million below that luxury tax threshold, but for those that listened to the press conference yesterday, Sandy Alderson and the Mets' new general manager, Jared Porter, have said the luxury tax is not a line of demarcation. It's a significant consideration, but it's not one that they absolutely can't pass. We don't see many teams that are able to do that, but I guess when you have $14 billion to work with, I guess we don't have to worry about paying a 20% tax on every dollar that we go over. So that being said, it doesn't seem like Springer and Bauer, Casey, are off the table.
Money is an arbitrary concept to begin with anyway. So you know what? It doesn't matter. What is a luxury tax anyway, especially when you're in the top 100 wealthiest people in the universe? Really, it's very funny to think about how unfathomable this offseason would have been under different leadership. A lot of things, you can play a lot of what ifs with the Wilpons still in charge. But if the Wilpons were in charge, it would have stopped at James McCann. There would be no other moves. Like the New York Mets, just moments ago, claimed Stephen Tarpley off of waivers. They signed Brandon Drury to the minor league contract. That would be the moves that would follow James McCann. That would be the depth. Now you're getting real depth. And the other moves that they're considering on top of this are equally as big name. There have been rumors that they're looking into Chris Bryant. There have been rumors that they're looking into Kyle Seager. These are all big salary guys and big name guys in the MLB. So, you don't even have to stop at Springer and Bauer, regardless of how likely either one of them is. The door isn't shut on acquiring someone else with a bloated salary that teams might be looking to get rid of, which is just unconscionable to think about when you consider the other moves. Whether Robinson Cano was off the books or not, it would have been just unthinkable to think about. Think of how many years the Mets were hamstrung because David Wright made about $15 million. It's a completely new era. It's a new regime. It's a new dawn. It's a new day. It's a new life, and we're feeling good.
Casey, it's unbelievable that the Mets gave up, in theory, right, as of right now, less for the best shortstop in the game than they did for 38-year-old Robinson Cano and Edwin Diaz.
Oh, absolutely, because the two, look, I don't want to quote, it was Blake Snell who used a certain term to describe prospects when on his Twitch stream. I don't know if we could say it on the Primetime rundown. But prospects, I get that the Mets farm system has to be replenished, but as someone, they're 2 second-round picks from last year. They're teenagers. They're not going to make the MLB anytime soon. I'm cool with mortgaging that future. And Rosario and Jimenez, nice players, very nice players, but not great players. Ahmed Rosario has had 3 years to prove that he's a great player. He's not it. We've seen what he is. He is a above average, slightly, shortstop. Andres Jimenez looked scrappy, looked fun, looked like a poor man's Luis Castillo. Good contact, good speed, fine fielder, not a star, which is what the Mets have been churning out for decades. Not a star. You have a star now. And Larry, I'm so excited. I know you're a Met fan too, Larry. I see the sign over your shoulder, Larry. I'm so excited, Larry.
Yeah. Well, the one thing Alderson and the Mets front office have stated is the fact that they will not, can't say the same for Brody Van Wagenen, but that they will not trade away their blue chip prospects. And one of those prospects that the Cubs would in theory be asking for in a Chris Bryant trade, and he'd be a 1-year rental type deal, because he would he'd be arbitration eligible, but he's entering the final year of his deal at 31 years of age, is they'd want Francisco Alvarez, and that's a player right now that it appears the Mets are not willing to part with. Larry, I'm going to age ourselves a little bit. We're starting to push 40, my man, and we can say well, we'll be 37 this July, but we can say that for the younger kids in the room, at least, that we vividly remember the Mike Piazza trade in 1998. This whole panel remembers the Johan Santana trade in 2011. We weren't alive we weren't alive for, say, the Keith Hernandez trade, but when you look at this Lindor trade, I know it's hard for us as Met fans and Met fans that grew up in the 90s and the early 2000s to completely dismiss any idea that there's never been any trade better in Mets history than Mike Piazza. But could this trade go down as maybe, if they lock him up long term, could this trade maybe go down as the best in the team's history?
There is absolutely a chance that can happen. I mean, Lindor is a career 285 hitter. He averages 29 home runs, 86 RBIs. Guy's got 2 Gold Gloves. He averages 21 steals. You know, he is a 5-tool player. He's a guy who has done it on both sides of the ball. And that's something that the Mets haven't had, right? During the entire tenure of Sandy Alderson, during his first run, and during the tenure of Brodie Van Wagenen, there was always issues with defense in the middle of the field, up the middle. Now you have somebody in Lindor at shortstop who can also play defense. It's going to make your pitching better. I'm just so excited about that, plus what he can do with the bat. But if you look, every time the Mets have turned around and made a run, I know we don't have this history of multiple championships. There was always a big trade involved. The Piazza trade is one of them. You mentioned the Keith Hernandez trade was the start of something new for those 80s Mets. This could be the start of something new for the decade of the 2020s and the New York Mets.
I applaud your restraint, excuse me, Larry, that you didn't break into song in High School Musical. This could be the start of something new. You directed
I thought about it. I've seen it.
Casey's seen it more times than he knows.
Now, Rob,
is it Larry? Is it Vanessa Hudgens? I can't tell. Both lookers.
Now, Rob is the only one in here who actually does work for Disney, so there's that little Disney pitch there on Rob's behalf. But Larry, I want to stick with you here because when we look back at the year that was 2020, the final year of the Wilpons, the Atlanta Braves again won the division. Miami made the playoffs for the first time since 2003. Even the Philadelphia Phillies, although they were under 500, were in the mix on the final day of the season. I mean, then again, so were the Mets, but the Mets finished 4th in their division. The only team that finished lower were the reigning World Series champion, the Washington Nationals. Do you think that this trade right now, as the team is set up, catapults them over the other 3 as a division favorite?
You know, it puts them really damn close because the Atlanta Braves are still a good baseball team. To me, it's so hard to look at 2020 and use it as a marker of what teams are going to do in 2021. It was a 60-game sprint. How many times do you see a team play one way? After the All-Star break, they get hot, they add someone at the deadline, and they make a run for it. So 2020 is tough. How many players opted out? How many and because of that, lineups were just constructed differently. Players, didn't play the same way because they didn't have their usual guy in the lineup with them. Like, look at how bad the Mets pitching was, especially you had injuries, but then you lost Stroman. Because he decided to opt out. Now he's back. He seems excited. I follow him on Twitter. So other teams experience that as well. What I like is I don't think the Mets are done. And Sandy Alderson likes, words matter. Sandy Alderson likes to, talk in mystery. He talked about the line of demarcation, but he also said that we're going to look at the market. The market will determine what we're going to do. They know how much money that they're still willing to spend. At this point, it looks like a lot of teams are not willing to spend money. I don't want to knock the Yankees. You got the Yankees and LeMahieu. They still can't figure it out. You got Michael Kay getting ready to jump off the roof because we got Lindor, and that was his plan B for the Yankees. And he's telling them, get in a room and figure it out. So when a team like the Yankees is having issues with money, or at least being a little more fiscally responsible, what are the other teams that don't normally spend as much? What are their situations like? And that's what makes Steve Cohen a little different. He didn't suffer losses in 2020. He was tweeting about the vaccine. He is hoping to get fans in this stadium, for a part of the season, and he's looking to make money, both in the stadium and through the TV deals and things of that nature.
We're definitely going to get to the Yankees as well in a few minutes here. But Casey, as the other Met fan in the room, I wanted to come back to you. Do you agree, or should I say, do you agree with Larry's points? But ultimately, do you feel that the Mets can jump those three teams and win the NL East in 2021?
I never want to immediately say out of the gate that a team is automatic. Oh, now they're the team to beat, because again, this could just be trained subjugation in the division. But every time the New York Mets have tried to do the come and get us routine, it has always failed. In 2007, when Carlos Beltran said we're the team to beat, the New York Mets collapsed and the Philadelphia Phillies won the division. In 2018, when Brody Van Wagenen said come and get us, he literally had to put out a statement at the end of the year that said they came and got us. Brody, anytime the Mets have tried to have bravado in the past, it has never worked, which is that goes back to Generation K. That goes back to the whole Matt Harvey saga. It's just example of all these failed attempts at confidence. But this is like the first time where you actually feel like there's something there to back it up. In 2007, when they collapsed down the stretch, it's because they weren't willing to spend on a reliever at the deadline. When in 2018 or 2019, when Brody said, come and get us, he was saying, come and get us with one of the worst pitching staffs in Major League Baseball outside of Seth Lugo and Jake DeGrom. And you can't win with 2 out of 15 pitchers on your roster. So this is the first time where, all right, you want to come and get us? We'll throw money at Marcus Stroman for a year, and we'll prove to him that we'll be competitors. We'll bring in Francisco Lindor for maybe 1 year. Who's to say? Yeah, we'll give him money, no problem. This is the first time where you actually feel like they're actually making moves to back up that bravado. So are they a competitor in the National League East? Yeah, but everything that goes on behind the scenes has to be backed up on the field. So I'm not ready to ring the victory bell yet, but we're getting there. We're certainly getting there.
And just to jump off of Casey, right? Yeah, you've seen a change in the culture in the front office and behind the scenes. You just hope that whatever culture Cohen's creating, that it applies on the field as well. Because you have Lindor, who they say is, has such a big personality, and you already see with Stroman on Twitter, so excited, to have these guys. And first of all, I think it's great to see the players tweeting back at Cohen and tweeting at each other. That you're really starting to see that this team is getting together, and they haven't even physically been together yet.
This is the most online that the Mets have ever been. You have Marcus Stroman regularly tweeting out. Noah Syndergaard has always been kind of pithy on Twitter. Same with Pete Alonso. Trevor May is hosting his Twitch streams, and he's hilarious. I love that. I love that he's showing his personality. Lindor's a big personality. Carrasco is a straight up adorable. Have you guys heard of the Carlos Carrasco Domino's story?
No, I have not.
No.
Carlos Carrasco, when he first got to Major League Baseball, ordered Domino's for 90 straight days because, and this is true, it's the only thing he knew how to order. He didn't speak a lot of English, so he found one restaurant and ordered it. So Domino's gave him their Customer of the Year award and gave him a month's supply of free pizza.
Oh, I can feel the stomach itch.
Yeah. He sounds like Rob in college.
Good as now we can have good pizza in New York. So
exactly.
I was going to ask if maybe the title right now for best social media maybe goes to Trevor Bauer, who decided, less than 24 hours after the Mets made the trade, decides to put together a 25-minute scouting report on Frankie Lindor and Carlos Carrasco while wearing a Mets hat with a T-shirt that said, "Your ad here." So I think Trevor Bauer is giving them a little bit of a run for their money. But we want to open up the conversation to everybody that's watching here tonight. So please, if you have any questions about the Mets or anything else that we discussed tonight, we want to hear from you. Please feel free to drop a comment in, and we want to put it up there for myself and our panelists to answer. I want to ask one more question about the Mets. So it appears, guys, that George Springer, they need to find a center fielder. There's been talk maybe that the Mets are now going to go for, after the Lindor trade, because he's going to ask for so much. They might go quality over quantity. But again, the Mets front office has said we have no problem going past the luxury tax number. So and the Mets have said, we need to clean up the middle. That means they need to clean up center field. That means maybe Brandon Nimmo isn't their starting center fielder. So that being said, I want to go around the horn here. Sorry, ESPN, I stole that from you for a second. But and ask each of you if you think, as a quick hit, and give me a yes or no and a why, if you think the Mets are going to sign George Springer. Rob, I want to start with you.
Yes, I do, because I really personally haven't heard George Springer linked to anybody else personally.
Well, Toronto's been the other. But
Toronto seems to be a bit active this offseason as well. They're trying to put some pieces together, get back into the AL East race. But yeah, for Springer, I think, because here's the thing, the Mets can also still pay Springer more than the Blue Jays can. That's just a fact. That's what happens when you have Steve Cohen. It really is as simple as that. But also I think he would fit the Mets really well. He would definitely be the starting center fielder. He barely wants days off. He's one of those guys that wants to play 162 games every single year plus playoffs. Days off to him are meaningless. He loves the game. He loves baseball. Aside from the whole Astros thing, but I'll let that go. He definitely plays baseball. He loves playing. I think he would fit well with the Mets. It would certainly help them out with moving Brendan Nimmo away from center field, just because it's not his natural position. I feel like they need a more natural center fielder, and George Springer is that guy, and they have the money to do that. So why not?
Well, Springer's looking somewhere in the area of $175 million right now, and the report is that the Blue Jays have not yet been able to exceed $125 million. So right now, the Blue Jays a cool $50 million off of George Springer's target. And Rob, you had mentioned that he would be a great fit, and he played. Lest we forget, he played his college ball up at UConn. So he's a guy who's very familiar to the tri-state area. Larry, your thoughts?
Well, like you just said, Toronto right now can only stay at 125 million. You know what? Especially with the Mets getting Lindor, they might just have to meet the 125 million and say, "Look at the team that we have." Do I think that they get him? I do, because Sandy said two things. He did say that he really wants the DH in the NL, that they have Dominic Smith, that he admitted he's a liability out in left field, right? And that he may have to play him there, but he loves.
Larry, did
there he is.
Sorry, I think your microphone muted there on us for a second. Okay, can you still hear us, Larry? All right, I think Larry froze there for a moment. Hopefully, we'll get him right back.
No. Chaos again.
KD, your thoughts on George Springer?
Sure. I mean, George Springer wanting $175 million over the course of 5 years isn't going to happen with the New York Mets. So as far as your question, no, I don't think that he's going to land in New York because I don't think that he's a necessity in New York. I don't think that it's George Springer or die in Queens, because I do think that you still have other options. I don't think that trotting out Brandon Nimmo in center field as your everyday starter, it's not ideal because he's not great defensively, but that's why I could see them going after Jackie Bradley Jr. Because JBJ is a great center fielder, as good. Yeah, as good defensively as it gets, or even bring back Jake Marisnick if he's still an option. Someone who can play past the seventh inning in center field, someone who can play 40, 50 games if you need him to in the event of an injury. There are other options where I wouldn't be crushed if George Springer decided to go elsewhere. I think that it's just too much. And I think the power play that Sandy Alderson and Jared Porter are going to try to do is they're going to try to let the market knock down George Springer before they go after him. George Springer is asking for $175 million. It's not going to happen anywhere. It's certainly not going to happen for an American team that's been hit by COVID, and it's certainly not going to happen for the Canadian team that has to deal with the exchange rates. It's just not going to happen. So they're going to wait for him to come down to about 125 million, as you said, Ian. You're going to have to knock down about $40 million off that price, maybe take one fewer year, and then the Mets will be in play. But I really don't think it's going to happen, and I don't think it needs to happen. I think they'll look for an alternate route and go for the on-base percentage and defense route, which would be Brendan Nimmo and JBJ.
So it appears we've got two yeses and one no. But Larry, are you back with us?
Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
All right, we're back. Perfect.
Did you want to finish your point about Springer or?
I don't know exactly where I was cut off, but my point was that, especially if there's going to be a DH in the NL this season, that's going to be more of a Dominic Smith kind of role. Yep. And you're going to have a question at third base. If they're not getting a Chris Bryant or something like that, you may have J.D. Davis. I don't love him at third base, but he may be there. So I think it makes sense to then put Springer in center, Nimmo over in left. I know Casey disagrees, but that's why we do the show.
No, I don't think that they need them, if only just because you don't know what the DH situation is going to be this year. And let's just say they go and get an infielder at third base, which is what they've been doing. They've been looking at Seager and they've been looking at Bryant, and I don't think LeMahieu would happen, but let's just say they kick the tires on LeMahieu and want to get someone else. That means that you're putting J.D. Davis in left field. And you have to keep him in the lineup, or at least platoon him with Dom Smith if that's really the route that you want to go.
Unless J.D. Davis potentially would get packaged as part of like a Chris Bryant deal then. But
right.
If that happens, that's a different story, yeah.
Yeah, so there's a lot of moving parts where, like, all right, if you get this guy, what happens to this guy? If you get this guy, what happens to this guy? It's a domino effect that the Mets find themselves in a very unique situation, which is why it's so fun to speculate. And it's the first time that you can speculate because, again, going back to the original point, it's the first time that they're actually going to get people.
Well, guys, before Francisco Lindor, or I should say before the calendar flipped over to 2021, the hot story in baseball, even though they were the hot story in the regular season last year, were the San Diego Padres. And the piece that was really missing from the Padres in an effort to try to knock off the Dodgers last year was that they were just really lacking in the starting pitching area. They had traded for Mike Clevinger. Clevinger went down with Tommy John. He's going to be gone all of 2021. So they were really still relying on guys like Chris Paddock and Kyle Davies to fill a hole. And Paddock has never seemed to meet the expectations that he has had since saying that he was more the rookie of the year than Pete Alonso only a couple of years ago. So with Clevinger on the shelf, they decided to go out there. And what did A.J. Preller do? Well, he traded for two solid starting pitchers, a former AL Cy Young of the Year winner in Blake Snell from the Tampa Bay Rays, and then getting the finalist or the runner-up, I should say, for the 2020 NL Cy Young of the Year award in Yu Darvish. So on top of revamping their rotation, what they've done is, and having a lineup that includes Manny Machado, Fernando Tatis Jr., Jake Cronenworth, Eric Hosmer, they are now just percentage points, guys, from surpassing the Dodgers for the projected, and again, projections don't mean much, but for the projected best WAR in 2021 in Major League Baseball. So, Larry, I want to start with you here. Do you feel that after these moves, is San Diego now the more complete team in the West, or even the National League altogether?
I mean, San Diego has gotten so much better. LA has been so good for so long. I know it's taken them so long to finally win themselves a World Series, but San Diego's gotten better. They got to get on the field and prove it. For the same reason that I can't tell you that the Mets are going to win the NL East, I can't tell you that San Diego's going to win the NL West. They bring in Ha-Sung Kim, right? Who's really a third baseman now. He's probably going to play second. He may even platoon. Is what I've heard. But he walks in here and says, "Well, I'm so excited to be here because we're going to be the World Series champs." And as a Met fan, I know that bravado doesn't work. Casey broke it down for us. I don't know if San Diego should be saying that yet. Do they have a good squad? They do, but they also have the team that's been the best in the National League for the last, let's say, 5 years that they have to beat first. Remember, they faced them in the playoffs last year and they got swept.
They went actually 4-6, the Padres, against the Dodgers in the regular season last year, in addition to their appearance in the postseason. When you look at their rotation, Casey, for 2021, as we said, Clevenger's on the shelf, but you hear names like Snell, Darvish, Lamet. They could also potentially call up their number one prospect in Mackenzie Gore. They really have what appears, at least on paper, to be a formidable rotation. So in your opinion, based on the rotations you see, Matt, stacking up in the through baseball, where do you see the Padres kind of stacking up with what they have now?
The Padres are certainly in as good a position as any baseball team has been over the last decade. The closest comparison that I can really think of for that squad is the 2011 Phillies. The 2011 Phillies, if you remember, had a pitching staff assembled of Halladay, Lee, Oswalt, and Hamels. They were dubbed the Four Aces, and they were going to be on Sports Illustrated's cover, and they were going to win it all. And they didn't leave the NLDS. They lost in Game 5 to the St. Louis Cardinals, and they lost because they lost a lot of 1- and 2-run games where it was 5-3 or 1-0 and a lot of really tight games. So to have a great pitching staff like that, it gives you a lot of swagger. It gives you a lot of confidence. And again, the Padres are a lot like the Mets, where they haven't had a lot of reason to have swagger. But last year was a shot across the bow to the rest of the MLB that they are a cool team. And trust me, there were a lot of nights where I was flipping after the Met game was done to the West Coast to go watch the San Diego Padres because they were a fun team to watch. But you just have to make sure that you're still scoring. You have to make sure that your offense still produces. So that means all the pressure is going to be on Fernando Tatis Jr. to keep being a god at short. You have to make sure you get another great year out of Manny Machado because Machado is getting older. Yu Darvish is getting older. So the window to win is now for the San Diego Padres. You have, in IMO, you have 2 to 3 years for the San Diego Padres before this window closes. So you have to be able to get in and execute immediately, which is going to be difficult. They have a lot of guys on that roster that are unproven. So they're going to have to rely a lot on Snell, who made a World Series, on Darvish, who made a World Series. Both of them lost those World Series, but they made it. And Eric Hosmer, who won a World Series. So it's going to be a lot of pressure on that team now. I still think that they will be one of the most fun teams to watch in Major League Baseball. No question about it.
Yeah, you're exactly right in saying that their window now, instead of expanding because they'd have all these prospects, they sent a lot of their prospects, 2 of their best indeed, in terms of Francisco Mejia and Luis Patino going back to Tampa in the Blake Snell trade. But CBS Sports right now actually lists San Diego as the #1 rotation in all of baseball entering 2021, listing in order as the Padres at 1, followed by the Dodgers, the Indians at 3. Now this article came out before the Carrasco and Lindor trade, the Braves, and then rounding it out were the Washington Nationals. Rob, I want to get your instant reaction. We know how hot the Padres were coming off of last year. Casey said it. They're just a fun bunch to watch. But what was your instant reaction to the trade? Do you feel that maybe the Padres dethroned the Dodgers run this year, or are they still maybe another year away?
It was an eye opener seeing those moves made by the Padres, no doubt about it. It's interesting. I mean, I personally think they're going to be a hell of a lot better once Clevenger comes back in 2022. Because then you've got that entire rotation right there. Even thinking about it scares me half to death, which luckily I don't have to deal with because I'm on the AL side of things. So I think that it's going to be a tight race this year. Finally, I'm not. The Dodgers are not the clear-cut NL West winners this year. I mean, they might end up doing it, but it's not going to be as clear-cut as it has been for the past decade, I guess you can say, maybe probably even longer. But other than that, I think that the Padres, are making the right moves. They are definitely going in the correct direction. They're only going to get better from here on out. They're going to certainly make another playoff run this year. It'll be interesting to see how far it goes. And then in 2022, when Clevenger does return, that's when you could start talking about potentially being a World Series contender at that point.
Well, bolstering that rotation, as much needed as it was, the Padres did finish 6 games back of the Dodgers in the NL West race, despite winning 37 games in a shortened season. I want to go back to some quick hits here, Casey and Larry, both with you. Larry, first, do you feel in the end that, as I asked Rob, do you feel that the Padres dethroned the Dodgers this year, or are they a year away?
You know what? I'll go on a whim here. They will dethrone them. They have such a stacked infield now that has just so much power. Tatis is an amazing ball player. They still have Machado in his prime. They have the guy Kim out of South Korea, who has actually put up some great numbers. And I know that those are Korean baseball numbers, where he did have 30 home runs. But we'll see what he can do here. But they also have a Rookie of the Year candidate who also played second base. So you can rotate them in and out, and you still have Hosmer. You add that to pitching staff. You add that with a Blake Snell, who can pitch well against the Dodgers. We just don't know how long he can pitch well for. We didn't get that opportunity to see that. But I think that they can dethrone them.
Let's us also not forget, I should say, that the Padres also have the 2020 National League Rookie of the Year in Jake Cronenworth, and they also have Will Myers out in right field. Casey, your prediction, are the Padres NL West champs in 2021?
The biggest thing that they have going for them is the championship hangover. I think that might be the deciding factor, because the Dodgers are still a great team. They're still a great lineup, and they're still a great pitching staff. But the biggest difference is that they won a World Series. So you wonder, are they complacent now? Yeah, you have to question their mindset and look at recent history as far as what the winners have usually done after a World Series. The Washington Nationals were not a very good baseball team the year after they won their World Series title. Same goes really for the Boston Red Sox. They've really slid down since they won their World Series title. They got rid of Mookie Betts. They sold the house. Even making the World Series, I mean, the Tampa Bay Rays made the World Series and then they gave away Blake Snell, but that's because they're a poverty franchise who should move. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. The San Diego Padres will have a lot of pressure on them to win. I think if they don't win, I hate to repeat myself, but if they don't win, there might be a lot of panic. So I think they will be extremely hungry and driven to win the division. I don't know if the Dodgers will have that same drive now that they have reached the mountaintop.
Interesting. 6:36 here on the Primetime Rundown. We do have a little more baseball to get to, but first we wanted to make sure we got to our 6:31 sports update. And this update coming from the gridiron that is college football, and that Jim Harbaugh has agreed to a 5-year contract extension, LOL, to stay at the University of Michigan. I think we could say here on this show that it's been a very underwhelming tenure thus far for Jim Harbaugh at his alma mater. He's 0-5 in his career in the game against Ohio State, 1-4 in bowl games, 2-12 against teams in the top 10. Ohio, I mean, the best part about it was that when they had announced the agreement was that Ohio State football actually liked the tweet on Twitter. So we'll see if things change right now for Harbaugh and the Wolverines. He did part ways with the only defensive coordinator that he's had in his tenure in Michigan, that being Don Brown. The contract does reportedly contain heavy incentives for winning the Big Ten East Division, the Big Ten Conference Championship game, reaching the college football playoff, and then ultimately winning the college football playoff national championship. He actually, in 6 years now, as the team's head coach, has only checked one of those boxes in his tenure, which was that he tied for first in the the Big Ten East Division in 2018. So will the tides finally turn for Jim Harbaugh at Michigan? That remains to be seen. There was a lot of talk about him maybe going back to the NFL, maybe being the name that we heard possibly for the Jets with their head coaching vacancy, but it appears he will remain in Ann Arbor at least, or unless he is bought out for the next 5 years. Gentlemen, let's move over here now to the Bronx to Yankee baseball, where Gary Sanchez, just after the new year, had actually put out a post on Instagram, and I wanted to read this to you. He's feeling pretty confident right now to say, and as this is coming up here, Happy New Year, everyone. Thank you to all that supported me. I will prove you right. And then hashtag I am still Gary. So he's hitting 310, guys, with 2 home runs in Dominican Winter Ball. Is he kind of here, and I'm going to, again, start with the Yankee fan here, Rob. Is he taking a little bit of a direct shot at the haters? Is there some optimism for Gary Sanchez in 2021?
Well, I don't have much choice in the matter here, but because he's my catcher, I kind of have to back him up here. But yeah, no, I'm all for him going after his haters. Just back it up this year, and that'll be that. Very, very simple. Very simple. You back it up, play well this season, and you are definitely going to be the Yankees catcher for the future. You don't have a good year this year, it is more than likely adios, Gary. So I am very excited to see what Gary Sanchez can do. He is hitting the ball rather well in Dominican ball down there, but I really want him to come also bring such a performance to Yankee Stadium and to the rest of our schedule and help the Yankees get back into the playoffs again and hopefully make that World Series run that has eluded us for the last 3 years. So we will see where that takes us.
Rob, I think it's kind of funny that you had already, after this year, if he does not produce, to bid au revoir to Gary Sanchez. Now, there was talk at one point of the Yankees non-tendering him and even potentially trying to trade him, seeing I think they even called the Mets because the Mets were in need of a catcher at the time. Would they take on Gary Sanchez? But Brian Cashman has come out and said that Gary Sanchez is our catcher, and that they're going to continue with that two-man battery of him and Kyle Higashioka to catch Garrett Cole every fifth day. But Casey, in the end, he slashed the line last year of 147, 253, 365 with 64 strikeouts in 156 at-bats in a shortened 2020 season. And that doesn't include being benched in the playoffs. Do you feel that, and the same question from Rob here to you, Casey, do you feel there's a reason for optimism for Gary Sanchez in 2021?
I think the only reason to be optimistic is because there's no possible way he could be worse. Look, the jury's out on Gary Sanchez. He's a bad defensive catcher. He is. People can freak out over the strength of his arm as much as they want. It's not terribly accurate, nor can he block the ball. So he is what he is behind the plate. So you just let that slide. And the reason why you tolerate it is because he hits 35 to 40 home runs. Well, if he's not hitting 35 to 40 home runs and not at least hitting 230, then he's useless. And you got to cut ties with him. I'm not freaking out over the fact that he is hitting 300 in the Dominican Winter Ball because Ronald Guzman is hitting 360 in that league. If you're a major league hitter, you should be tearing up the Dominican Winter League. What are you, nuts? Raul Valdez gets significant innings in the Dominican Winter League. You can't hit Raul Valdez? Of course you can. You're Gary Sanchez. So, I appreciate that he's hitting for more contact down there, but face major leaguers. All right, it's like a team of good major leaguers. It's a good league down there in the Dominican, but it's not Major League Baseball. And Gary Sanchez had a devil of a time dealing with what was a good pitching staff in the American League East. He had to deal with Snell. He had to deal with Hyun-Jin Ryu. And last year, the AL East played the NL East, and there's some great pitchers in the NL East. There's Jacob deGrom. You could go up and down the rosters of great pitching that he had to deal with, and he didn't fare well with it. So he's going to have a big test ahead of him, and I do think that he'll stay there because what else can you do with him? He has no trade value. You kind of just have to ride Gary out until he crashes and burns, if that happens, or until he takes off and becomes the Gary Sanchez that the Yankees saw in his first season. They're going to ride or die with Gary. There's really no other alternative.
There was talk at one point that maybe the Yankees would be interested in acquiring 38-year-old Yadi Molina, maybe to bring him in to serve as a mentor. And Yadi Molina will arguably go down as one of the best defensive catchers to ever play the game. But Larry, we know how important and vital Gary Sanchez being on the field and performing to the capability that he can in making the Yankees successful for 2021, because we know that they're having financial struggles. We know right now that they're struggling to re-sign DJ LeMahieu. So even more of a reason that Gary Sanchez needs to return to that 2017 form where he hit 33 home runs and 90 RBIs. Do you think that maybe in 2021, Gary can finally get back there?
He's got to take what he's doing in the Dominican and have that pump up his confidence, take that into spring training and just keep the train rolling. Because if this gets in his head, because what blew my mind was that he didn't understand in October why he was being benched for these playoff games. And that was his quote, that he didn't understand why. Well, you were batting 147. I mean, that's the reason why we got to win these games. And the Yankees are in a spot right now where, yeah, they are going with Gary Sanchez. They do not have a backup plan. As you said, it's a position where he would give you 30 some odd home runs. If he gives you nothing, then it's going to put the Yankees in trouble. So they are riding it or dying with him. And listen, I hope he gets the confidence and he comes through. But if the Yankees could bring in a guy like Molina for 1 or 2 years to serve as, let's say, the pseudo backup catcher and the mentor, that might be a great move if they can do it.
Gentlemen, I was when I was putting this prompt together, I was ready to conclude the baseball news there until about 5 hours ago when the news had come down that the baseball universe had lost Tommy Lasorda at the age of 93. So the Eastern Observer family, the Primetime Rundown, we all want to pass down our deepest condolences and sympathies to the Lasorda family and the Los Angeles Dodgers organization. He spent more than 70 years in the Dodgers organization. He actually first played with the Dodgers in Brooklyn, and he had only been released, and it was not COVID related, but had only been released from the hospital 2 days ago, managed the Dodgers for 2 decades, 8 division titles, 2 World Series, 1981, 1988, a 2-time Manager of the Year, and ultimately was inducted into Cooperstown into the Baseball Hall of Fame in 1997. As Met fans will best remember him not only as being the manager that crushed Mets fans' dreams in 1988, but convinced the Dodgers to draft eventual franchise catcher Mike Piazza in the 62nd round of the 1988 MLB first-year player draft. I know, speaking from my experience and I was only 4 years old when the Dodgers won the World Series in 1988, so I don't really remember it. However, I remember the picture of Kirk Gibson hitting the pinch hit home run in Game 1 of the 88 World Series against the Oakland A's, and Tommy Lasorda just kind of running out to home plate to join his team in the celebration. That, for me, was my most unforgettable moment. Rob, do you have an unforgettable moment when it comes to Tommy Lasorda, or just losing a man of his stature and what he has meant to baseball? What was it like for you when you heard this news?
I was crushed to hear this news, honestly. Because look, let's be real. Like I said in the open, as if this week needed another reason to suck, and it just drops this on us, and we get this dropped on us in the morning. Just awful. A baseball legend, not just a Dodger legend, a baseball legend. Everyone knows who Tommy Lasorda is if you're a baseball fan. And it really, I don't have a moment per se that really sticks out just because I'm not a Dodger fan. But, when you win 2 World Series, you're a winner. You are a winner. He's in Cooperstown. He is a Hall of Famer. He is a legend. And 93 years old, he lived a great life. And he will be sorely missed, and I am sure that'll really help the Dodgers out this season, having that weight on their shoulders playing for him.
Casey, I'm sure you were preparing for the show when this news had broken that the MLB, the baseball world, had lost Tommy Lasorda. So when you saw this news, what was your instant reaction to it?
I mean, Tommy lived a very long and very successful, and honestly, from what it seemed like, a very happy life. I mean, someone who was around baseball for that long, you tip your cap to him because, I mean, he was bleeding Dodger blue until his very last day, and he was 93, was it? I mean, he was.
Yeah.
Look, if I make it to 75, I'm going to be happy. So hell, if I make it to 26, I'll be happy. So I obviously thoughts go out to the Lasorda family and the whole Dodger nation. I saw something pop up on my Twitter feed, which was Tommy to a T, where it was a video of him giving a speech. It looked like to a bunch of students, and he's explaining his interaction with a young Oral Hershiser. And he's giving the speech, and he says, when Oral was a rookie, we brought him into the bullpen in a bases-loaded scenario. And he's pitching to a big batter, and he throws ball 1 low and away, ball 2 low and away, ball 3 low and away. And he figures, all right, well, now I got to come over the plate. And he throws over the plate, and it gets cracked off the wall for a 3-run double. And he calls in Oral Hershiser to his office after the game, and he says, you're pitching like a coward. You're the biggest loser pitcher that I've ever seen because you're throwing low and away. You're afraid to challenge hitters. You've got to throw the ball over the plate. And by the way, I hate your name. Your name is Oral. You think Dale Murphy is scared of a guy named Oral coming into the game? No, from now on, your nickname is the Bulldog, and you're going to like it, and you're going to pitch like a Bulldog. And that was Tommy. Tommy just had a way of keeping the game loose and absurdist. Just and by the way, just in case you didn't feel bad enough, I hate your name. So that was enough.
Feels like the second coming of Earl Weaver a little bit at that point.
Oh yeah, so that wasn't even like the one that gets quoted around my house. If I can tell another one of Tommy Lasorda. Tommy Lasorda was in a situation where the batters were throwing at. People thought that his pitcher was throwing at Kurt.
I was going to mention this. Yeah, this is a good one.
Yeah. Oh well, then Larry, I'll let you take.
No. I have another one. You can mention that one.
Oh, okay, good.
Take
So
it away.
Kurt Bavacqua gets knocked down. People think that they're throwing at him, and he says after the game, "I want to make it perfectly clear that the Los Angeles Dodgers do not throw at people. And if we did throw at someone, we wouldn't be throwing at a 180 hitter like Bavacqua, who couldn't hit water if he fell out of a boat, which is baller. That's amazing."
Larry, when you look at the players that had come through the Dodger system while Lasorda had managed the team, not only was it a Oral Hershiser, Kirk Gibson, pitchers like Fernando Valenzuela, Steve Sachs, So many names to come out of the Dodgers organization during his time as manager, Piazza as well. When you had heard this news about the loss of a baseball legend, what was going through your mind?
That all of baseball lost somebody special, right? Because I know you took all the names. I was going to name all these, NL Rookie of the Year winners that he had managed. You left out Eric Caro, so I can at least mention somebody, right? But it goes back to what Casey said. I'm not just trying to bounce everything off each other, but he was good with taking a player, especially a young player, and pumping them up and explaining to them. And it might not be the nicest way to explain it. He was a guy who was open and wasn't afraid to say how he felt. He told the story that Casey told. There was another game where the Dodgers got blown out, and I forget who the hitter was. The guy hit 3 home runs off of the Dodgers, and they asked him after the game about that player. And
Dave Kingman.
Right, exactly. Yes, it was Dave Kingman. And we shouldn't curse on this show, so I really can't even give most of the quote. But he basically flips out, throwing F-bombs around, saying, "Are you kidding me? He killed us. You want to ask me about him?" And he said that was, another word I can't say on the program. But he spoke from his heart. And he was also known outside of baseball. Guy was friends with Sinatra. He lived that Hollywood life. I remember as a kid watching, I forget what WrestleMania it was, and Tommy Lasorda was like the guest referee or the announcer. He was one of those, special celebrities there back in the late 80s. So he's going to be missed.
He's a combination of a guy who was he was both a hard ass and someone that you really loved and respected when you were in his clubhouse. There's we could go on for hours and hours just telling our favorite anecdotes that we've overheard about Tommy Lasorda. Tommy Lasorda once, he had a rookie with him once, and he winked at him and goes, "Watch this." And he plucked a hair from his head and plopped it on a half-eaten steak, showed it to his waiter, and he's like, "That's how you get a free steak in Los Angeles." He was amazing that he would think of that. My other favorite one is that he's with the 1987 Dodgers, and the thing that he tried to instill in the 87 Dodgers is, where do you want the ball hit? You want the ball hit to you. You want to make sure when you're standing out in the field, you are confident in yourself, and when the ball hits you, you're not panicking. You're on the balls of your feet, and you're receiving the ball easily, and you're throwing. So he's going around the horn, and he goes, "All right, Mariano Duncan, where do you want the ball hit to you? I want the ball hit to me. Mike Marshall, where do you want the ball hit? I want the ball hit to me." He gets to Pedro Guerrero. "Pedro Guerrero, where do you want the ball hit?" He goes, "I don't want the ball hit to me. I don't want the ball hit to Steve Sachs." Just
the memories upon memories of Tommy Lasorda and what he meant to the game of baseball. But again, we send our deepest condolences to the Lasorda family, Tommy Lasorda, and the Dodgers organization. Tommy Lasorda dead at 93. As we move on here now to football, and we do have a very, very busy weekend of playoff football coming up. We got 3 games Saturday and 3 games Sunday. But since we are the Primetime Rundown on the Eastern Observer Network, our primary focus is always the local teams. And right now, the local team would be the Buffalo Bills. But we focus on the metropolitan teams in this area. And I think it would be a shame if we didn't at least revisit a little bit of Week 17 and spoke about the Giants and Jets before we spoke about wild card weekend. And I think Casey knows exactly where I'm going with this, because the first subject I'd like to bring up is the final game of the regular season in the National Football League that took place in Week 17 between the Washington Football Team and the Philadelphia Eagles. As we know, the New York Giants, albeit they went 6-10 and probably didn't deserve to get there, had an opportunity to win the division on the final Sunday of the season. Got the win over Dallas at home, 23-19, and needed the Eagles to defeat Washington on Sunday Night Football. The Eagles, in fact, jumped out to a 14-10 lead on the heels of 2 Jalen Hurts touchdowns. And then the head coach of the Philadelphia Eagles decides, I want to watch and see what I have in my third-string quarterback in a guy by the name of Zach Sudfeld. Goes to Sudfeld in the fourth quarter, and Washington ultimately wins the game and ultimately wins the division. Gentlemen, we knew what this was, even though Doug Peterson has said he was coaching to win. The players even had to be restrained from controlling him after the game. Casey, Brian, I know you're a Giants fan. I'm going to start with you here, and obviously so is Rob. But Casey, I'm going to start with you here. What were your thoughts overall? In terms, what does this say to you about the integrity of the game altogether?
You know what? My heart bleeds for Wayne Gallman, because he shoved a ball up his own rectum for nothing. I mean, the poor guy gave himself a pigskin prostate exam, and it turns out that it doesn't even have an impact on his playoff hopes. The poor guy. You know what? Watching the Philadelphia Eagles put in Nate Sudfeld for the fourth quarter.
Oh, I'm sorry, it's Zach Sudfeld. I meant Nate. I apologize.
No, you know what? That proves his point.
He's a nobody.
That's the point. Sit there.
When Nate Sudfeld gets brought into the fourth quarter, there's so many things to dissect from this one decision. It was like watching a blimp crash in real time because, like, slowly it is crashing to the ground and it's gaining more and more flames. And you're thinking, oh, the humanity, having to watch this poor sap run like hell from a blitz. Jalen Hurts, when he got blitzed, could escape the pocket and could throw downfield and could still look for options or take it himself. Nate Sudfeld, when the blitz was coming, looked like he was about to wet himself. And sometimes you can't prove to me that he didn't, because he would just on the first drive, he hawks the ball up and it's intercepted on the 50-yard line. Great. Well done, guy. Well done. Good job. Your parents are proud. He collapsed to the ground anytime a defensive lineman ever came close to him, which makes me think, what would have happened if Jalen Hurts converted that fourth down, right? When they were down 17-14 on the 5-yard line, what did they do? They ran it 3 straight times. They had no interest in making the end zone. They ran it up the middle 3 straight times into the pile, got to the 4-yard line, said, you know what? You're thinking, all right, we're content. We'll kick the field goal, and whatever happens from here happens. No, they went for it on 4th down. It was a bad play call because you have no options, but hey, you went for it. If Jalen Hurts had tripped over himself and accidentally found himself in the end zone, would Nate Sudfeld have still played? Would you still be trotting out this 27-year-old who they just brought out of Section 205, Row G, Seat 5? Congrats. We fulfilled a make-a-wish here. Congrats. Nate Sudfeld got to play with the Eagles for a day. Isn't that special? It's mind-boggling how we got to this point. I don't know. Rob, take it away. I'm sick of this.
Rob, I want to give you a chance to grind your gears as well, but I want to follow up with you. But Rob, in the meantime, take it away, as Casey said.
All right. What I saw on Sunday Night Football 5 days ago, feels like a year at this point, but 5 days ago, the New York Giants are waiting to see if they win the NFC East. They got 2 rivals playing against each other. They need a Philadelphia Eagles win. They get 2 touchdowns from Jalen Hurts. Things look good. Washington makes a comeback. And then the fourth quarter happens. I have never seen one organization in the history of sports be so hated, be the most hated, and at the same time least respected in a span of 12 hours. What I saw from Doug Peterson was pathetic, childish, and moronic. And to try and sell that he was attempting to win that game is a joke. Look, I'll put it this way. If Nate Sudfeld had started whoever that is, had started the game, fine. That the Eagles aren't trying. Whatever. We're 6-10. It's not like the Giants deserve to be there anyway. So if Sudfeld starts the game, even starts the whole second half, fine. That's that is a real game plan. That is a real strategy. What I saw was intentional tanking. Everyone makes this, oh yeah, we're tanking, let's get that draft pick. I never really thought I saw a team do that ever in a game, because the players want to win because they need to keep their value around.
Yes. And
especially for a guy like Jalen Hurts, to show that he's the starting quarterback of the future. How the hell are Eagles fans supposed to know that now, that he, in a pressure situation, he just gets pulled from the game? Well, how can Eagles fans figure that out? I certainly couldn't. I don't know if right now, to me, Jalen Hurts is Carson Wentz 2.0. He didn't show me anything impressive. He ran for a couple touchdowns. Great. Any quarterback can do that from 2 yards away. So you know what? Good riddance. I hope the Eagles bust their draft pick. I can't wait for them to draft the bust with number 6. I can't wait for them to screw it up. They've got Chase. They've got Smith to choose from. Whoever they end up picking, can't wait for him to bust out of the league after 2 years. And I can't wait for the first game the Giants play the Eagles next season. I want to see a college football type score, Michigan versus Rutgers before Greg Schiano got back there. 73-0. Don't stop scoring. Doug Peterson is clearly not losing his job because he was given that job security in after week 16. So run it up on him. Do not take your foot off the gas pedal, Joe Judge. Keep on going. Starters, all 4 quarters, regardless of the score, all the way.
As a fan of the TV show Cobra Kai, I have to say, show no mercy. But I will say this, that there is a video that surfaced during the game that shows Jalen Hurts mouthing the words, "It's not right." And to piggyback on that, and listen, I have the utmost respect for Al Michaels and his career as a broadcaster, but I thought in the final game of this regular season, he had one of his worst games as a play-by-play announcer that I've ever seen. And but he did on one of the final plays when the Eagles still had a chance to win the game. Sudfeld was rolling out and just made some awful throw, and Al Michaels utters the words, "What was that?" So if that just didn't just anger the fans and even anger the Eagles players, and credit to Jim Schwartz and the Philadelphia Eagle defense for actually still playing for 60 minutes. Larry, I know you're a Jets fan, but I also wanted to give you your 2 minutes here to offer up your opinion on what you saw on that final game of Week 17.
Well, first, I want to know who Chris Collinsworth knows in New York. He said all these Giant fans kept texting him during the game. I was just wondering who these people were. Because Chris Collinsworth has no connection to New York at all. So there was that. But, yeah, I mean, you said it, that the players had to be restrained from talking to Peterson, where they want to play. The team did everything they could to make sure that their players could not perform at the best level. It's like watching the movie Major League. That's what the Week 17 game felt like. Listen, did the Giants deserve to win the division? No. Unfortunately, no team in the NFC East deserved to go to the playoffs. And we'll see. Tom Brady may, spank the football team on Saturday night. But a team has to go from that division. The Giants, they did win some big games. They had the Seattle win. They did what they had to do in beating Dallas. And what Philly did is just terrible. And it's not fair to Jalen Hurts. It's not fair to the other players who are actually playing for contracts and playing to get better.
Gentlemen, Washington's in. We'll get into Washington in a little bit when we preview Wild Card Weekend. The Giants are not. But now we can look forward to 2021 for the New York Football Giants. Although they finished 6-10, they had a 4-2 record in their division. That's actually their best divisional record, actually their first winning record in the division since 2016. As we know, that's the boat party in Miami where they lost to Green Bay, but the last year they went to the playoffs. Dave Gettleman by far had his best year in his tenure as Giants general manager, which earned him another year. Statistically, because of Patrick Graham, who the Giants just extended as their associate head coach and defensive coordinator, had a top 15 defense in the National Football League. And offensively, Daniel Jones made strides, and Saquon is set to return from injury from his torn ACL. So I think it's fair to say here, Rob, that Gettleman needs to, and I emphasize that word, needs to get the Giants to the playoffs. It was even mentioned in the New York Post in 2021 to keep his job. We know they need offensive weapons, but what for you, Rob, are the Giants' off-season plans? Where do they turn in free agency or the draft?
Well, to say I'm kind of upset that Dave Gettleman gets to keep his job after all this I'm very disappointed. There is nothing about a 6-10 season like this that says he should have kept his job. Joe Judge is unless Joe Judge said keep him here, then fine. I get it. Joe Judge is clearly the coach of the future for the Giants, so that's where that is. And if he says Dave Gettleman should get another shot, fine, we'll give him another shot. I love the extension for Patrick Graham. I think that was the way the Giants defense was this year. It was a no-brainer decision. What the Giants need to work on in the offseason, they certainly need to get a wide receiver out there. They certainly need another weapon to give to Daniel Jones. As it has been stated, Daniel Jones is the quarterback next season. So get him some weapons. He'll have Saquon Barkley back. That'll be great. And also, what I saw this season that needs major improvement, aside from the kicker and punter, is the rest of special teams. I could not believe the amount of dropped kicks that I saw,
Missed tackles.
fumbles off the return, and just flat out not smart playing during special teams, allowing big returns. It was unfathomable how bad special teams was. So I'm really hoping to see something be moved on from there. I also personally wouldn't hate it if Jason Garrett accepted the Chargers coaching position and left the New York Giants, because I thought he did a very poor job as offensive coordinator this year. And of course, the offensive line can always use a little work. I think on the right side, it is time to allow Matt Pert to get full starts next season, because Andrew Fleming was not that good over there. A lot of stupid penalties and poor blocking, which had made Daniel Jones have to leave the pocket sooner than he wanted to. At least he was able to see it, being that it was on the right side. It was not his blind side. So I think this is a interesting offseason for the Giants. The defense really did play great. They were a top 10 defense in the league. I think James Bradbury is one of Dave Gettleman's greatest finds. That may have also contributed to why he kept his job, for these little finds on defense. That
Martinez, Logan Ryan.
Yeah, all these finds, that they were great finds. Gettleman gets his credit there. But yeah, I think offensively and special teams, they gotta pick up a couple more people, draft a couple interesting players, maybe even sign a couple of notable free agents for these positions would work. Just something. Build the team forward. It is time to move forward. 6-10, 11th draft pick does not necessarily say you're tanking, but it also doesn't say you're a great team either. You're in that weird middle of bad but not awful. It's time to go forward with this rebuild. Go forward. No more tear downs. Only up from here.
Casey, your thoughts, same question.
I think that the Giants could use one more pass rusher. Leonard Williams was very good, especially towards the latter part of the season, and he was a beast in those last games, especially against Dallas in Week 17. But you could use one more scary guy on that defensive line, which is, easier said than done. But that should be a focus in the draft for them. The other thing that I would love to see them do, they probably won't do it, but what I would love to see them do is trade up for Devontae Smith. Oh my God, do they ever need a receiving option? No slight to Darius Slayton, who's fine. I like Darius Slayton. I like Sterling Shepard as a 2 option.
They're not deep receivers, right? They're not deep threats.
Yeah, no, and the Giants don't always have that deep threat. Honestly, if you really think about it, Victor Cruz was the last time that they had a legit deep threat.
Hakeem Nicks was really the deep threat.
Yeah, it's you had the 2 legit NFL receivers. Odell Beckham obviously was great, and Plex Burris was great. And Plex Burris had a Monty Toomer with him. You need multiple options. The Giants were too easy to mark downfield, because if you took away Sterling Shepard, there really wasn't another deep ball threat. Darius Slayton was a fine short route receiver. He wasn't a deep ball threat. So if they were able to trade up and get Devontae Smith, that would be a godsend. The other option that they need to address at tight end, oh my God, Evan Engram, take your bow, take your quiver, and fire him into the sun. He's a Pro Bowler. He's a Pro Bowler. Tanyan is not a Pro Bowler. Evan Engram is a Pro Bowler, and that's a pro problem right there, because he's not a Pro Bowl tight end. He single-handedly contributed to 2 losses for the New York Giants. The one that went in and out of his hand.
Yeah.
I can't remember where I saw this stat, so I could be wrong here, but I believe he led the NFL among tight ends among drop passes.
You're right about that, yeah.
And I believe of his 8 dropped passes, 6 of them led to interceptions.
Yes, that's right.
It was a ridiculous number. How is that even mathematically possible? So they need to get a different tight end. There needs to be a change there. He's just not the fix. I'll disagree with Rob about Jason Garrett. I thought he was fine. I think Rob is just holding bitterness from his Cowboys days.
Maybe.
I thought, because keep in mind, he didn't have a lot of options this year. And what I liked about Jason Garrett that we didn't see out of the Pat Shurmur regime or Ben McAdoo regime was that there were chances taken. You ran a couple flea flickers. You had a lot of motion. on your offensive line. It wasn't so stagnant where you could guarantee, all right, draw left coming. Here we go, baby. It was a kind of unpredictable offense, which allowed Wayne Gallman to thrive, which allowed Slayton to thrive, which allowed Pettis to thrive in the late part of the season. You know, you had these, if you got real NFLers on that offense, I think you'd be okay.
Casey, I wonder if Garrett was the one who called that. You remember that special teams 4th down, go for it?
Oh, man.
Yeah.
They had
the Ravens.
out wide as a receiver and Riley Dixon throwing the ball.
Yeah. Look, I didn't say he was perfect. I just said he took chances. And you know what? That's more than could be said of the Giants of the past.
That's true.
Larry, when you look at the rest of the NFC East right now, the Eagles are about to become in salary cap hell, so to speak. Washington is really good because they finished in last place last year, but they're going to face a much tougher schedule in 2021. The NFC East faces Mahomes and the rest of the AFC West. They face Brady and obviously no longer Breeze if he retires, but the NFC South. And then on top of that, they're also going to face the Packers and the Seahawks because you finished in first place in your division. You assume that the return of Dak Prescott, if they extend him, will likely slot Dallas as the preseason favorite in that NFC East. But can you see if the Giants just really address that offense and give Daniel Jones some weapons? Can they win the NFC East next year?
You know what? I think they do have an opportunity to win the NFC East because, like you said, the NFC East is still not a good division. And now they're going to be in a situation where all of these teams that are not that good have to play really good football teams. And then Washington has the bad luck of now, because you won and you were the odd man out, you now have to play Seattle. You have to play Green Bay. So you can see a team like Washington going from first back to dead last in that division. And if Daniel Jones is the guy they've said he is, they need to do everything they can to make him better. It's the same thing I've always felt about with Sam Darnold, you know, being a Jet fan, is if that's your guy, you got to do what you can to make him better. You know, better offensive line, Rob said it, it makes every player better. Makes your running back better. It makes your quarterback better if he has an extra second before he has to throw the ball. And if I have someone who can catch the ball or who can get open, gravy.
Let's move over now to the Jets, who finally, we weren't sure at one point if it was going to happen, but for Jets fans, and Larry's the one here of the four of us that is one, Adam Gase, before their Week 17 game against New England, which they conveniently lost to New England 24-14, was given his walking papers before that game, and the Jets, as a result, finished 2-14. They're actually their worst record since going 1-15 with the Rich Kotite Jets in 1996. So the brilliant offensive mind, as was quoted by the Jets owner Chris Johnson, is out as the New York Jets head coach. The Gase nightmare concludes with a record of 9-23. That's a .391 winning percentage. Larry, I'm going to start with you here as the Jet fan. What's the feeling, my man? Relief?
Yes. I am so happy that he is gone. But it's not like a new coach comes in and all of a sudden this team is great. You know, this team has a lot of problems. They also have a lot of uncertainty. You know, this was a team that could have had the number one pick, and I believe that teams do not tank, and that at least players, like Philadelphia proved it, players do not tank, and so I'm okay with the fact that they won against the Rams. I'm okay with the fact that they won against Cleveland. But now they're in a really tough bind because now you don't have the number one pick, right? So if you thought you were going to get Trevor Lawrence, that it could be off the table. And now you have two other quarterbacks. Are you going to go with one of them two at the number 2 pick? Or are you going to finally say, hey, let's bring in a new coach. Let's build around Sam Darnold, because could Sam Darnold burn us, go to some other team? All of a sudden, he's the quarterback in Dallas next year, and he's winning an NFC East title if he plays to what his potential was. So the Jets have to do this right. What's good is at this point, it looks like they're letting Joe Douglas be the one to run everything. There is no committee like last time with all these consultants. There is no, the owner is basically going to be the one who's going to hire the head coach, especially because there's going to be a change in ownership again anyway, right? Because Woody Johnson is going to likely be back. So, not to get into the politics, but he will be back from the UK come February. So, there's also that. I like the fact that they've given Joe Douglas the keys, but I wonder what he's going to do.
Well, you know what, Larry? I'm not so sure that maybe Trevor Lawrence isn't the number one pick. I think Justin Fields had earned his stripes in the semifinal win against Trevor Lawrence's Clemson Tigers, and the news coming out that they are considering Urban Meyer in Jacksonville to replace Doug Marrone as their head coach. And lest we forget that Urban Meyer won a national championship at Ohio State and has Ohio State connections before the unfortunate circumstances that involved his assistant coach with a domestic violence dispute, though he had said that he stepped away for medical reasons. I know they were also the Jaguars interested in the Ohio State's current head coach in Ryan Day, though Ryan Day is saying at this time he's not soliciting any NFL offers, nor does he want to go to an NFL job. Casey, so I want to ask you that. So, Trevor Lawrence still might be on the radar for the Jets if a coach like Urban Meyer gets hired in Jacksonville and they end up drafting a Fields and maybe a Trevor Lawrence falls to the Jets. But how can they, Casey, finally resolve what feels like this repeating turnstile at head coach? We know their struggles on offense. Do they finally give the offensive coordinator at Kansas City, Eric Bieniemy, a chance? Do they go after the hot name in Robert Saleh, who's a very hot candidate right now coming out as the defensive coordinator in San Francisco? We know they've interviewed the former Cincinnati Bengals head coach Marvin Lewis. Josh McDaniels is out there. Bill O'Brien's out there. How do they correct this once and for all?
The smart choice would be Bieniemy, but it's the New York Jets, and you can't count on the smart choice. So I could 100% see Bill O'Brien be brought in. And if Bill O'Brien is going to be their option, God help the New York Jets. What a franchise. I think Anthony Lynn could also be in the discussion. I think Anthony Lynn came from the Jets organization, so he has ties there. I could see them bringing him back after he just got let go from the Los Angeles Chargers. He might be a good option. But honestly, they should be looking for someone to radically change the culture. That's what you want. And to do that, I think you need a first-time head coach. I think this is the time to kind of experiment and get a little nuts. So you get Bieniemy, you get the defensive coordinator from San Francisco. You don't get also Rand and Marvin Lewis. You don't get a Bill O'Brien. You don't get someone who's just on the carousel, constantly waiting for another 8-8 or 7-9 season on that Jeff Fisher 7-9 BS. You know what I mean? So you want someone to radically change it. It worked for the Giants. You don't have to look very far to find an example. The Giants brought in Joe Judge as a first-time head coach, and he radically changed the organization and their mindset and their attitude. So the Jets have to be really savvy about who they bring in. I'm not sure who the best option would be. Bieniemy would be my choice if I was the New York Jets, but I wouldn't count on them getting Trevor Lawrence. The fun discussion will be whether or not they seriously pursued Deshaun Watson, who's apparently getting shopped. I think that would be hilarious, and it would automatically give you a radical change in New York. I think it's something they should consider. It would be ludicrous. It would be ridiculous. It would be like draft day with Kevin Costner. He gives away all of his first-round picks, and then he gets all of his first-round picks back, plus a punt returner, and we had a great day.
I don't disagree with you, Casey. I think Bieniemy really would be the perfect answer for the Jets. And also another name that's been out there for the Jets that they interviewed is a former New York Jet player, and Aaron Glenn, who's the defensive backs coach with the New Orleans Saints. But Rob, it seems like the Jets are starting to lay that foundation. Mekhi Becton, Denzel Mims had promising rookie seasons, even though Mims started the year hurt. There's a lot of promise coming from their franchise left tackle and their franchise wide receiver. And on top of that, the Jets have $72 million available in cap space, the number 2 overall pick, as we already know. And then on top of that, wherever Seattle finishes, they're also going to have the Seattle pick coming off from the Jamal Adams trade. So do you feel that Sam Darnold, because it just feels like that they've never put the right pieces, or at least in the last 3 years, that Sam Darnold has not had the right supporting cast to get him to succeed. Did he have some interception issues coming out of USC? Yes. But do you feel that the right pieces have been put around Sam Darnold for him to succeed? And if not, does he finally deserve that chance entering his contract year?
Yeah, I believe he absolutely has not had the proper weapons he had to succeed outside of maybe his rookie year. But he was a rookie. You can't go off of 1 year. That's why Daniel Jones was given another shot here this year. You just can't go off of 1 year. I do think that if the Jets give him the weapons, he has a chance to succeed. It's a matter of will he? Because then if he's given the weapons, then you are able to see if he really is the quarterback of the future. And unless Trevor Lawrence falls to the Jets at number 2, which, by the way, Jacksonville should have to fold, close operation, shut down, cancel themselves if they let Trevor Lawrence go past the number 1 overall pick. It's as simple as that. Justin Fields should not be considered the number 1 overall pick off of a great game, no less than the semifinal, but something you didn't really see too often either. So I think you gotta assume you're not getting Trevor Lawrence, because you should essentially know you're not, and draft properly. Maybe go with at number 2 overall. You go with Penny Sewell, and that will immediately improve the Jets. That would be a great move for them, and then they have to also look at somewhat like a possible weapon. Maybe trade back a couple spots and pick one of those receivers, like a Jamar Chase out of LSU or Devontae Smith from Alabama. The Jets have a lot of choices here at number 2, but I definitely don't think quarterback is their move, because Trevor Lawrence is no longer an option.
Larry, do you agree with Rob's comments, or do you think that even if they lose out on Trevor Lawrence, they should still draft Justin Fields, or should they continue on with Sam Darnold, finally get the pieces around him, maybe draft a Sewell from Oregon who would continue to fortify that offensive line and try to maybe trade down and grab more picks?
I say if you can't get Trevor Lawrence, then you're going to run with Sam Darnold next year. I think that's the way you have to go, because you're not going to burn a number 2 pick on one of these other quarterbacks. I remember when Vince Young was the hero in the national championship game, and it got him such high draft value, and he was a bust. You can't look at 1 game or 2 games and say, all right, this is the guy, when he wasn't on your radar beforehand. Trevor Lawrence is the guy, and then there's such a drop in quality after that. I guess my question is, if no one has gone to Trevor Lawrence's birthday party, we're going to get him at 2.
Very, very nice draft day add in there off of Casey's point. Fellas, let's keep things rolling here in the AFC East, and I think we can all say that the Cam Newton experiment for 1 year in New England was an absolute failure. Had 8 passing touchdowns to 10 interceptions last year for the Patriots, 12 rushing touchdowns, but he was also benched 3 times during the season. And I think the acquisition of Cam also, even though that the New England Patriots had seemed high on Jarrett Stidham, acquiring Cam Newton, to me at least, and I don't know if it does for the 3 of you, tells me that Jarrett Stidham is not the future of what is happening right now at One Patriot Way in Foxborough. So it appears to me that it's going to be time for Bill Belichick to start from scratch or try to dip into the free agent trade pool. That being said, that brings us to Casey's point from earlier, from just a few seconds ago, where he said, maybe do the New England Patriots inquire about Deshaun Watson? And why do I say that? I say that because who was the head coach that drafted Deshaun Watson? Bill O'Brien. What coaching pool does Bill O'Brien come from? He comes from the Bill Belichick coaching pool. So Casey, I'll start with you here since you brought up Deshaun. Where do the Patriots turn? Do they potentially, in a Sonny Weaver kind of way, try to mortgage the farm for Deshaun Watson?
But they get back Putney, and what a heck of a Putney he is. I don't know if they would make that kind of move, because the Patriots have not been terribly daring with their draft picks in the past, if only just because they haven't found themselves in this kind of position in a very long time where they have a draft pick outside of the 20s. It's a very odd scenario that the Patriots now find themselves in. So I don't know if there's pressure on them to make a splash where you're luring them to a water park to physically illustrate Make a Splash, which is a real scene in Draft Day where Kevin Costner is brought to an empty water park and told, make a splash. What a great movie this is.
Yeah, it really is.
I don't know if I could see them getting Deshaun Watson, because honestly, would 3 first-round picks from the New England Patriots even be enough? Like, I don't think it would be. And I just don't see Bill Belichick being that kind of coach. He never has been in the past. He's not the Jimmy Johnson kind where he would just throw every single pick he has so that he can land Herschel Walker. You know what I mean? It's a very different style. So I can see them trying to search for someone within the organization, trying to build someone up from the ground up, because honestly, it's where Tom Brady came from. They found Tom Brady in the last round. So I could see them trying to pull some more of that Patriots devil magic going forward, or even taking a chance on someone who is established and looking for a new role, like a Jameis Winston might be an okay gamble. A Teddy Bridgewater might be an okay gamble. A Ryan Fitzpatrick might be an okay gamble. You know, someone who is a clear-cut starter. You can bring someone in, have him be mentored by this veteran, and like Cam, just try to find a reclamation project until the future is settled, because I don't think they'll find the future in this draft.
Well, Casey, I think that Vontae Mack is the better prospect than Bo Callahan.
Vontae Mack, no matter what. Write it down on your Post-it notes, people.
Rob, Casey had mentioned maybe they want to search for the future, and you know the college football landscape pretty well. And I say that because maybe even though the new GM of the Houston Texans, Nick Caserio, who is formerly I believe the director of player personnel from the New England Patriots, so he has ties to New England, has already come out and said today that Deshaun Watson is our quarterback. So A, do you think he would get traded? And B, if going back to Casey's point, would they maybe, at where they are right now in the draft order, would they maybe inquire about, say, a Mac Jones from Alabama?
It's interesting, to say the least. I mean, look, if Deshaun Watson wants out, you have to try to accommodate him. You know, you just can't do that. Otherwise, then you run into problems that way. So there's rumors that Watson is looking to potentially request a trade. If that is true, I absolutely see the New England Patriots trying to put their hat in the ring, and it would scare the hell out of me. And because that's something between the players that they lost from opt-out that they'll get back next year, and just everything else that Bill Belichick can do, Deshaun Watson literally puts them right back into the playoffs. It's like they didn't miss a beat. So that's certainly something to look out for if Deshaun Watson does, in fact, want out of Houston. Which, at the same time, if he does, I really hope J.J. Watt does the same, because both of them deserve so much better than this. This was such an unacceptable season from the Houston Texans. And it starts and it ended with trading away DeAndre Hopkins. And I think that while Caserio saying that is reassuring to some Houston fans, it literally comes down to Watson at that point. So I think it'll be close. I think maybe Watson tries to give it one more year, maybe give the new GM a chance to try to give him some weapons and try to keep Deshaun Watson enticed in Houston. So maybe we will see what happens in 2021, and then maybe if Houston duplicates this performance, then I think you absolutely see Deshaun Watson requesting a trade one way out of Houston faster than you can blink.
Larry, if Deshaun Watson, and we'll get back to Deshaun in a second, but if Deshaun Watson isn't the guy for New England, there are some other names that they can inquire about that will be available in some capacity. One of those names, even though Joey's not here with us tonight, is Carson Wentz. But as the question is, does Bill Belichick want to take on that massive load of a contract? It appears that the 49ers and Jimmy Garoppolo are starting to part ways. He has experience with Bill Belichick, as we know, serving as a backup to Brady at one point. Dak Prescott is still awaiting his extension, but what is his knee looking like right now? There's a new GM and a new head coach coming to Detroit. Is Matt Stafford's time up in Detroit? Larry, do you think that maybe they look at one of those names, or is there a name maybe I haven't mentioned yet?
Throughout Belichick's history, with New England, because he had Tom Brady, they were never in a spot where they had to pay a lot of money or have a large chunk of their salary cap to be devoted to a quarterback, right? So and that's why they were so good, right? Tom Brady always took pay cuts, so they were able to spend money around him and make him better. So I think they tried to do that again this year when they brought in, Cam, and it didn't work out. I think Belichick would love to bring someone in and have a reclamation project so he can take credit for it. A guy like Carson Wentz makes a lot of sense because he still has talent, and
good point.
He has talent. He's young enough. You probably can get him at a decent price, in comparison to what a guy like Dak Prescott would be looking at. And I guess if he gets Garoppolo and they play back to their level, that again shows that it's not only that shows how great Belichick is. If he could then take Garoppolo and go, hey, look, we're good again. Right. When he couldn't do it in San Francisco. But of those guys, Carson Wentz is the most salivating if I'm Belichick.
Casey, it seems like you agree with Larry's point on Wentz.
I hadn't even considered Wentz, honestly, because he's been so forgettable this year and so invisible. But that would be a perfect opportunity for him to grow again in New England. He's still young enough to where he's got a future considerably. He does have some talent. It's just not being tapped into. He would be a perfect option for them. Yeah, I hadn't even considered that. It's a great point, Larry.
Gentlemen, I forgot to get to the 718 sports update, but we will get there in a moment. But what I want to do is go around the room here and just do a quick buy or sell on whether you believe that come 2021, Deshaun Watson is going to be traded to another team. Rob, let's start with you.
It's a tough one. I think I'm gonna stick by my guns, and I'm gonna sell here. I'm gonna think he stays for this year. Allow Nick Caserio to see what he can do, and see if he can help things out. Give him some weapons, and because if you give Deshaun Watson some weapons, Deshaun Watson's one of the best quarterbacks in this league, arguably top 3. So if he gets some weapons, watch out.
Larry,
I will also sell that he will still be the quarterback of the Texans next year. You build around him, you have new leadership, and then he can show you what they can do. I don't think a lot of other teams are gonna give up the number of picks that they need to give up to get him.
Casey.
I'll disagree with Larry on the point that I think that someone would be silly enough to trade away the crazy number of picks. I think that you could see the Detroit Lions giving away a stupid number of picks to get a new quarterback. But the thing is that the Texans won't do it because the Texans learned their lesson from the DeAndre Hopkins trade. I think that if they traded away Deshaun Watson after handing away DeAndre Hopkins like a 3-button coat at the Salvation Army, if you really did that, Bill O'Brien's not the GM anymore, so it's not really a realistic possibility. If the Texans trade away Deshaun Watson, fold as a franchise. I'm dead serious. Give up. Close the stadium. Have J.J. Watt join just have him walk to somewhere else. Have him find a new. It's like a foster cat after its owner dies. Just give it to a nice little home so that it can retire and live out the rest of his Hall of Fame career. They would be the most irrelevant football franchise in the league if they trade away Deshaun Watson. So I pray to God that they don't.
Gentlemen, we have Super Wildcard Weekend predictions on tap, but first I wanted to make sure it is 7:33 here now on the Primetime Rundown. I want to make sure we didn't forget about our 718 Sports Update, and our 718 Sports Update actually features what was a pretty busy past 24 hours in the National Hockey League. The first note being that Henrik Lundqvist's open heart surgery was a success. I'm glad to see that he actually did tweet on social media today and that he is recovering and doing well. The next part of that is I hope that some team will try to take on if he still wants to play, a 39-year-old with a heart condition. Highly doubtful, but just happy that he's doing well in coming off his surgery. The league has also reported that 4 teams will have in the NHL limited attendance this year at home games. 2 of them, not so much a surprise considering what we've seen with respect to COVID exposure and sporting events in the state of Florida. So the Tampa Bay Lightning and the Florida Panthers will have limited attendance, though the Florida Panthers don't draw anything to begin with, followed by as well as the Arizona Coyotes and the Dallas Stars. On Rob's note with regard to the Devils, that Corey Crawford is going to be taking an indefinite leave of absence from the New Jersey Devils for personal matters. So we wish him the best. It seems that it's going to be even sooner than later, Rob, that it's Mackenzie Blackwood or bust. And lastly, the latest news to come out of the National Hockey League today is that the Dallas Stars, who we just said will have limited attendance at home games, have had 6 players and 2 staff members test positive for COVID-19. So the start of their season, even though the puck is supposed to drop on the season on Wednesday, is going to have the start of their season delayed. Robert, Casey, have they announced exactly when they project to have
The earliest possible date they can start is January 19th.
January 19th? So.
What he said. Pretty much point.
Wait, no, you're that way.
That way. Here.
You got to mirror it.
Do it.
Well, we have some shake and bake happening here on the Primetime Rundown. We want to conclude our NFL segment here with what is the big news this weekend, which is not just Wild Card Weekend, as I mentioned, but Super Wild Card Weekend. And as I pull up the bracket here of the path to the Super Bowl in Tampa Bay, Florida this year on February 7th, 2021, the 3 Wild Card games on Saturday will feature first the Colts at the Bills at 105, the Rams at Seahawks at 440, and the concluding with the Bucks and the Washington football team at 8:15, because why not? Brady always gets prime time. And then on Sunday, we've got Baltimore and Tennessee at 105, which is a rematch of last year's AFC divisional round. Then at 440, we could see Drew Brees' last game in the NFL when they host the Chicago Bears at 440, and concluding the wild card weekend will be the Browns and the Steelers. We will get to Kevin Stefanski here with regards to the COVID exposure of what's happening right now with the Cleveland Browns and whether or not that game should be postponed. But it is the first postseason appearance for the Browns since 2002. And just the other day, I believe it hasn't been announced yet until tonight, but I had put up our picks for wild card weekend between and I see you there, Casey, between myself and Rob. And as you can see, our picks pretty much mirror each other, except for the Tennessee-Baltimore game where Joey has the Titans advancing, where Rob and I both have the Baltimore Ravens. So, gentlemen, Rob, I'm going to start with you here. Our picks match each other, but what game on that schedule of the 6 games you've seen has your attention the most this weekend?
I would have to say it's got to be Tennessee-Baltimore. Without question, this is a game that really could go either way. Like my picks, as you saw from my picks there, very boring, no upsets whatsoever. Yeah, go down the line there. You got the Saints. That's probably going to be a wash. The Saints is going to be not great. The Bears aren't that good. You got the Seahawks over the Rams. The Rams limped into the playoffs, so I think the Seahawks will do it with ease. And speaking of limping in there, you got the NFC East. So I think Tom Brady and Tampa Bay will just have a field day there. So yeah, I think that Tennessee Baltimore is going to be a great game. I'm very excited to watch it, and I think that the Ravens might be, even though it's in Nashville with fans, I think Baltimore might be able to come in there and put I guess you can call it an upset per se, just because they're the lower seed, but I mean, it's such a toss-up. I don't really think either team winning would be a shock. It could really go either way.
Larry, same question. What game has your attention this weekend? And do you agree with the predictions that we had put up for Rob, myself, and Joey?
I do agree with the predictions, but you guys went safe on most of them. Like Rob, I do think Tennessee is going to win this game. But he talked about the Tennessee game, so I'll talk about the Rams and the I'm sorry, Rob. You did pick Baltimore. I'm sorry, but I'm going to go with the Rams and the Seahawks. It's a third meeting between these two teams. The LA Rams. I know, Ian. You have talked about them all season long, but they have come on at the end. They are a great defense, and they're going to play against a Seattle team that once the postseason hits, magic happens. They just put things together. I can see this game, being 17-14, and then all of a sudden with, 3 minutes to go, there'll be magic, and Russell Wilson will do what Russell Wilson normally does. So I think that game will be exciting, that it will go down to the wire. It's always cool when there's a third meeting in a season between these other teams. But you know what? As a random, I'm also going to pay a little attention to the Bears and the Saints, because I don't know if you know this. Me being a father of 2 boys, one who's a 4-year-old, that game is not only on CBS, that is also being simulcasted.
That's right.
And they're going to be having graphics with their sliming players, and SpongeBob's going to be like on the field and stuff like that. So I'm going to tune in, and this is like a Nickelodeon broadcast with their own, crew. I'm going to flip on that network, and maybe I can get my son to watch a little more football than he normally does, of checking it out, telling me it's football, and then wants to watch YouTube Kids on his Kindle. I'm hoping that may excite him. So we're definitely going to tune in just to see that. The game but yes. Just to see SpongeBob.
And Joey also didn't forget to drop in his Lone Wolf comment, while I'm sure he's still in Brooklyn right now, saying Titans, because he is the Lone Wolf, the only difference, I should say.
The one game that could make a difference here.
Yeah.
I'm with you on the Titans. Derrick Henry has been a beast.
Yes, he has. But lest we forget, Rob, that Joey did finish in last place with
I'll never let him forget.
Live that down. Casey, of what we've discussed so far, what games have your attention, and do you agree with our predictions?
It's interesting because I'm genuinely surprised at how uniform your picks are, because to me, a lot of these games could go either way. I think the Colts will put up a better fight against the Bills than you guys are giving credit. I think that the Titans will put up a much better fight against the Ravens than you guys are giving credit. But the one game that has my attention is the Steelers and Browns, if only just because it has the highest meme potential of any of the games, which is honestly the only way that we should be evaluating sporting events. And the other thing that kind of stuns me, all 3 of you picked the Steelers? Really?
The Browns have COVID. They haven't practiced all week.
Even with COVID, I think that the Steelers have been
Casey, I will say this. Let's be real here. I have said on this show many times, I am the first one to say that the Steelers are fake and frauds.
We said it. We said it weeks ago when they were 8-0. We said that they were frauds.
Yeah, absolutely. We know they're frauds. There is absolutely a chance the Browns can win this game. I just think because it's the playoffs and because the Browns haven't literally been able to do anything until today, not great.
I mean, I'll validate my pick of the Steelers because I'm putting a lot of stake in that comeback against the Colts, who statistically have a top 5 defense in the National Football League. And on top of that, the Steelers have had a top defense. I mean, granted, their offense has been shaky at best because Roethlisberger, again, is playing hurt, and it's not hard to see it. And they're not getting much of a running game out of James Conner, so Roethlisberger really has to do it all at this point. Is that because they have the defense that they do, I think that they are going to basically force Baker to be the man. That right now, the Browns get by with these wins because of the 2-headed running attack that they have Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt. If that running attack does not get going, they don't win football games at all. I mean, look, losing Beckham was huge, but you look at some of the receivers they have. I mean, Austin Hooper and Jarvis Landry and David Njoku. I mean, besides Landry, they don't just scream off the page. I mean, they made Austin Hooper a top 5 paid tight end in the NFL this year. So a lot of what, for a team that is able to stop the run the way the Steelers are, it's just going to put Baker, it's their first playoff game since 2002. Baker's never been in this position. If he can do it, all the more power to him. Listen, I have no problem cheering on the Browns here, but I just think from a realistic standpoint, when you have a quarterback that's been there before, when you have a defense that can stop the run, and you're going to force a quarterback who's making his first playoff appearance to be the guy, I'm not so sure Baker can get it done.
Those are all valid points. Counterpoints. The Steelers are a dumpster fire right now. I know that they had that one good win against Indianapolis. You're absolutely right. But they couldn't pull it out against Cleveland in Week 17, and they've looked
started, not bad.
Yeah, the point notwithstanding is that they just look so discombobulated compared to the beginning of this season. They were a dynamic offense when they were playing Cleveland in Week 4 when they beat them 38-7. And then they haven't looked the same. They couldn't beat Washington. Now, granted, Again, Cleveland has their fair share of bad losses too. They lost to the New York Jets. That's an unforgivable act. It's fine. But I just think that Cleveland is riding a wave of momentum right now, kind of like the Buffalo Bills in the sense that they have a chance to rewrite history. And I understand that there's a lot of uncertainty when it comes to a first playoff appearance, but I do think that there's something to be said for being that underdog mentality, COVID or no COVID, that I'm surprised that, like, of the three of you, I'm surprised not one of you took a chance on Cleveland. I'm just saying.
For me at least, it's look, I don't mind. I'll be the first one to get behind Cleveland if they win, but I'm not there yet. Pittsburgh's got the playoff experience, and yes, I don't disagree with you. They are a dumpster fire. They're probably one of the most if not the most overrated. I mean, the only other overrated team I feel there is in football are the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And we could discuss them as well, just because I think that they're not as good as their record indicates. And even though they have Tom Brady, I don't think they're good as the way things indicate. But guys, I want to stick here with Cleveland here for a second. And the reason I want to do that is because Kevin Stefanski, their head coach, is also not going to coach on Sunday. And there's been a lot of discussion about whether or not they should postpone the game to make it fair to both sides. Like, this is not a regular season game. This is a win or go home situation. And Larry, I'm going to start with you here. It's their first postseason appearance since 2002. And I'm not saying because it's been 19 years that that since the Browns made the playoffs that they should get a pass. But it seems like in a game where it's the playoffs, you're trying to make the Super Bowl, it's win or go home. This isn't a regular season game where in week 9 where maybe you can get by. This is a game you have to win or you're done. Do you feel that that maybe the discussions should take a little bit more of a deeper look into the discussions of maybe trying to postpone this game and not have it on Sunday night?
You know what? I think they should have the discussion. They have done it in the regular season. There was football played on extra games on Monday. There was football on Tuesday. There was football on Wednesday. They did it during the regular season, so I definitely think that they need to discuss it. The only concern is if you move a game on Super Wild Card Weekend, I think you're going to be in a situation where you're going to have to move a divisional playoff game because it would be unfair to play a game on Tuesday and tell the winner of that game, now you got to play on Sunday. Fine, you'll get the Sunday late game, let's say, but you don't have the same amount of rest, right? That's the setup. Week 17 in the NFL, everybody plays on Sunday for a reason. It also sets up for playoffs. So they would have to do a lot more tinkering with the schedule. I don't know if they want to open those can of worms, but they did during the regular season. They bent over backwards for a lot of teams. COVID has been destroying the Cleveland Browns, and to not have your head coach is a big deal. They should consider it, but I don't think they'll move it.
Rob, do you agree with Larry on that point?
Absolutely. I'm sure it already has been discussed, but and they more than likely came to a unanimous decision to not move it, because at that point you cannot ask a team to play on Tuesday and then again on Sunday, and then you can't jumble this, because then you're jumbling the entire playoff schedule. So you don't want to do that. And I think the Browns are going to have to try and figure this out on just with 2 days of practice. It's not going to be great. It's probably going to be ugly for them, especially without their head coach. But, crazy things have happened. And as I have said, the Steelers are frauds. So anything is possible.
Gentlemen, this is our first show actually since before the new year, or I should say before the holidays, including Christmas. And during that time, it had been announced that possibly Drew Brees might be playing in his final games of his career, a decorated 20-year career that's going to see him one day become a first ballot Hall of Famer into Canton. And Casey, I don't want to just say what was your reaction to his possible retirement and just looking back on his career, but just knowing that if they lose to Mitch Trubisky in Chicago, that game could be Brees' last. What does that mean to you?
I'm reminded of a conversation that we had on Tuesday in the hockey show where Henrik Lundqvist said goodbye to the New York Rangers organization without getting a true farewell with fans to cheer him on. Drew Brees will not get the proper send-off that he deserves, because even though it'll be at home and even though they may be letting in some people, it's not enough. Drew Brees deserved, as at least from an athletic standpoint, to wave goodbye to a crowded Superdome because of what he represented to the organization. So it's a shame that he goes out like this. But then again, that's true of a lot of people who retire in this given time. So it's a shame that he's being forced out, but I mean, his health was ailing. I mean, we were speculating whether or not his career would be over and whether he would ever come back from the hit that he took earlier this year that fractured several of his ribs and damaged his lungs. And he was back 5 weeks, 6 weeks later, rub some dirt in it, put some ice on it, and you're good. Take the field, pop an Advil, you'll be fine. And he was back on the field. So it's an interesting scenario for Drew Brees. If this is the end, then it's been a heck of a time watching an incredible talent on the field. And I don't know if the Bears are the team that'll do it to him, but it's a tough road ahead for the New Orleans Saints. And the crazy thing is that, and we were talking about this when he went down with the injury, the Saints are still going to be just fine even if he retires. They're so good and so dynamic offensively that Rob DeLuca could be their quarterback and they would still win games.
I think to a point. I mean, Alvin Kamara, Michael Thomas, Jared Cook, the pieces they have are make the Saints what they are. But I don't know if you have the confidence in them that you do. Maybe if Taysom Hill is starting for them on Sunday. But Rob, your thoughts on the career that's been Drew Brees's, and will he maybe possibly will he go out the same way Peyton Manning did?
It's very possible. I think it's very, very possible. So possible that way back in September, I may or may not have placed a little $10 bet on the New Orleans Saints to win it all. And when I say may or may not, I totally did.
Now,
so yeah, I'm sticking to my gut on that one. But I think it would just be the perfect way to send off a obvious first ballot Hall of Famer into the light, and because it's in Tampa, this
light is he dying?
into the far light. But and because it's in Tampa, Florida, who knows? It's up to the stadium to decide how many people they want to let in, and the NFL. So who knows how many people will be at the Super Bowl should the Saints and Drew Brees get all the way over there. So if that's the case, there is a slight glimmer of hope for a real proper send-off. We don't know. That's still just about a month away. So we will see when we cross that bridge. But it has been such a privilege to grow up and be an adult with Drew Brees in the NFL. And I think it will be great if that is the way he is sent out of the NFL and into retirement. I am absolutely on the Saints train this playoff run.
One thing I can say is Larry, being a Long Islander now, did not travel across the bridge to New Jersey to place a futures bet back in September on the New Orleans Saints. But Larry, and you're someone who's seen Drew Brees since the start of his career back when he was playing for the then San Diego Chargers. Do you see potentially Drew Brees ending his season the way most see their season ending with a championship?
The New Orleans Saints are a great football team. He definitely has a chance to do it. But he's going to have to go through some other great quarterbacks. There's a chance that he may have to face Tampa Bay. And he's had problems playing Tom Brady just in his career. He might have to go through Aaron Rodgers. The Packers have been a good football team this year. But you look back, Brees had a phenomenal career, and I can't believe he only has one ring. If he could get another one, listen, ride out into the sunset, that would just be an amazing way to do it. It's going to be a battle, though, but that's a good football team in New Orleans. And I hope he does, because, what, they can win the NFC, but then, for him to go face a guy like Patrick Mahomes, which is like an old school Breeze with a cannon and can just throw the ball anywhere, would be tough. I'm rooting for him, but it's going to be a tough road.
And where, in fact, did he win his first Super Bowl when he won Super Bowl 41? He won it in the state of Florida in Miami when they beat the Colts on the Tracy Porter pick six. So something to keep in mind. It wasn't the same stadium, but it was inside the same state. But ladies and gentlemen, we hope you guys, as well as for the rest of our panel, hope you enjoy the games this weekend. And we look forward to coming to you next week when we recap the games that were and get ready to preview the divisional weekend for you. Gentlemen, we have a few minutes to go here, so I know we didn't get a chance to get into too much hockey talk. I know we had our NHL preview show on Tuesday, and we still can't thank Donnie Rosner from Blue Line Deli, Casey for serving as our Rangers analyst, and the fourth period, Dave Pagnotta and Dennis Bernstein for their insight during that show. It was really a lot of fun, and we're looking forward to the puck dropping on the NHL season in less than a week. Wednesday night will be the night that the puck drops, and then the Rangers and Islanders will meet at Madison Square Garden on Thursday. And Rob, does the Devil season also begin on Thursday, or do they start Friday?
Thursday night, Boston Bruins in New Jersey.
So all three local teams will be in action on next Thursday night. Looking forward to it. Can't believe hockey season's back already, but we're ready to go. And that being said, I'm going to go around the room here as we have a few final minutes before our kudos. And even though we didn't get a chance to talk again about Barzal or talk about possibly, Pierre LeBrun was reporting that maybe the Rangers would put the prospects together that they have to maybe try to put together a trade for a Patrick Laine with Winnipeg, or even talk about Keandre Miller again playing his way into the lineup possibly on opening night for the Rangers. But the one piece I wanted to get to was really to get for the three of you your Cup final predictions, as this is going to be the final show for us before the puck drops on the NHL season. And I know Joey's watching, so I want him to comment with his Cup predictions as well for 2021. So, Rob, let's start with you.
All right. So this is a 56-game sprint. Anything's possible this season in the NHL, and I'm very excited to see it. I think it's going to be a great season, not necessarily for my New Jersey Devils. I think, to be perfectly honest, that's going to be a train wreck. I'm hoping to be competitive at this point. That's all I'm hoping for from the Devils, is to be in every game, look good, and improve and build upon every single game.
That's too much Devils analysis from you, Rob, at this point.
More than likely finishing in last place in the Eastern Division, maybe 7th place ahead of Buffalo. But for the Cup final, I have to look towards a team like Colorado. If Grubauer and Francouz can put together a stellar tandem, this is gonna be an unstoppable team, because offense and defense. Oh my God, this team is scary. They are, unless they're upset in the playoffs again like they were in the bubble. But again, the NHL playoffs, anything's possible. But I think this is the time Colorado finally comes back 20 years and 20 years later, no less, than from their last Stanley Cup final run. So, and ending with a ring. So I think the Colorado Avalanche will be there. On the Eastern side of things, it's an interesting one because of the Canadian division. So it'll be interesting, but I think ultimately we are going to see the Tampa Bay Lightning return to the Stanley Cup final, but it will be the Colorado Avalanche lifting the trophy this time around.
Well, the key for the Colorado Avalanche, Rob, as you said, is the goaltending. We know that they've got the scorers with McKinnon and Landeskog, and the pieces are there, but they just need to make sure they have the goaltending. So, Rob's prediction, Colorado and Tampa, with Colorado hoisting the cup. Casey Bryant, you're up.
Phoenix and Ottawa. No, I'm kidding. It'll be a really interesting NHL season. There are a lot of storylines to go around. I think this is going to be one of the most unique hockey seasons. External reasons aside, there's so much to look at. Zdeno Chara finding a new home in Washington, and I know that Washington is extremely motivated to get back to the Stanley Cup final. They want one more good kick at the can with a Backstrom and Ovechkin core, and they've been going the veteran route. They started with Henrik Lundqvist. That didn't work, so they brought in Zdeno Chara. They're trying to get guys who have gotten over the hump or are hungry for one more in that last kick of the can. Toronto's kind of taking the same approach. It took me until a week ago to kind of remember, oh yeah, Joe Thornton is on the Toronto Maple Leafs. That happened. I felt like that happened years ago, or maybe I dreamt it in like a fever dream or something. And he's playing on the left wing with Matthews and Marner. What line is this? So there's a lot of really interesting combinations to go around. I'm going to say it's the Vegas Golden Knights that upset the Colorado Avalanche in the Western Conference Final. Colorado is scary. Don't get me wrong. They are a great roster. But I think that Vegas is just really well built. And they have that 1A, 1B goaltending tandem that they're going to keep riding in Leonard and Fleury, which was really hot last year. That got them to where they needed to go. Adding Alex Pietrangelo was a big get for them on defense. So they're going to be a fun team to come out of the Western Conference. As far as the East goes, I mean, Toronto is going to have a lot of pressure on them to make something happen because they are the Toronto Maple Leafs and the city expects a lot of them, and they still haven't gotten past that first round. That loss to Columbus last year was a big punch to the gut for that organization. So there's going to be a lot of pressure on them. I'm going to say it's a Toronto-Carolina kind of – Toronto and Carolina are going to be too interesting. Carolina is going to be in the Central, though. It's hard to adjust to that.
Yeah, what if we end up with like three? What if we end up with like three Western teams? This could end up being really weird.
I thought Toronto is going to be an interesting one, but I think that out of the Eastern Division, you're looking up and down that division. I'm afraid that the division is going to cannibalize itself in terms of competitor, but I think that the Philadelphia Flyers are going to have the best chance to come out of that division. So I'll say it'll be Vegas, and I'll say it's the Flyers in the Stanley Cup final, and I'll say it's the Vegas Golden Knights because the AV window, the Alain Vigneault effect, is 2 years.
Yes.
The New York Rangers were in the Stanley Cup final 1 year, the Eastern Conference final the next year. This is year 2 of Alain Vigneault in Philadelphia. This is the last year of your window, Philly. Welcome to it.
Yeah, that Cup final makes me want to jump out my window. Actually,
Larry, your NHL predictions for this year?
All right, well, I'm not a big NHL guy. There's just never as much free time to watch hockey. I do my baseball and football. But but of what I know, I do agree that the Colorado Avalanche are a scary team. They are complete. They will probably be in the final. But I actually do like Toronto. I think Toronto has a chance to win in the East. They have Matthews. They have Tavares. If Matthews can do a little more scoring, which he can do. Then I think Toronto has a shot. In fact, I'll say Toronto upsets Colorado.
So the Leafs and the Islander fans like Joey are very, very upset because John Tavares is hoisting a cup north of the border, and the Stanley Cup would return north of the border for the first time since 1993. It still has yet to return north of the border when the Montreal Canadiens won it. And then I had asked Joey, I'm sure his ears were ringing because he had given us his prediction. He is buying Patrice Bergeron and Pasta for this year and has Colorado facing Boston. So it's hard to go against those picks just based on their finishes last year and the offensive weapons that they throw at you, especially with players like DeBrusk and Pasternak and Bergeron and so on and so forth, and Tuukka coming back. So Colorado versus Boston, Joey's choice for the 2021, and it's only because I just had Pasta, says Joey Jarzynka. So,
I mean, I was going to say Boston is a bold choice because they did lose Torrey Krug from their.
They lost a lot on defense. It's not.
I mean, they do have options on there, but losing Krug and Chara, that's a big one.
Gentlemen,
I want to know what kind of pasta it was, by the way.
Well, yeah,
maybe Joey will comment in the meantime while you offer your kudos, because we have hit that point of the show. And Casey, I'm going to allow you to go first because I need your opinion on something, which is, do you think that Tibbs is doing a good job as the Knicks head coach right now?
Buddy, let me tell you something right now. All right? As I have on screen right now, looking at it, there's 7.9 seconds to go in the first quarter of a New York Knicks basketball game in which they are the favorites, according to DraftKings. What a world we live in.
Are they covering though, Casey?
Yo, bro, are New York sports back? Like, is this happening? Are the Jets are getting the second overall pick. The Giants are going to get a good pick. And they were already a great football team anyway, obviously.
Yeah, obviously.
The New York Mets are going to run New York. The New York Knicks are taking over the Eastern Conference. Bro, is New York back? Are we doing this? The New York Knicks are currently up by 9, but what I love about Tom Thibodeau is how much he's unafraid to challenge. It's that linguine with garlic oil. Well done, Joey. All right, good work. Gabagool. Anyway, and Tom Thibodeau, I don't pretend to be the NBA fan that watches 82 regular season games. You know, I'll box score watch and I'll hop from game to game, team to team, and it's a very laissez-faire approach to NBA. This has been the first season, just by virtue of nothing else really being on, where I've made a point of watching every single Knick game, going from like an ironic LOL Knicks fan to, wow, this team is actually really fun to watch. And when you watch Tom Thibodeau coach, if there's a bad defensive sequence, he'll call timeout and let you know. If you were up by 8 and now you're only up by 5, he'll let you know. When you need a big basket, you're up by 1 possession and you need a big 3, he's drawing up plays and guys are executing and trusting the offense and moving the ball. So it's a very interesting thing to see that there's a legit coach that is challenging the players to be better and win games, and they're responding. Julius Randle is a legit MVP contender with the way he's playing right now, which who would have picked that at the beginning of the season? Who could have possibly seen this coming?
Rob, I wonder what that is on DraftKings.
Yeah, Rob, you
The New York Knicks have themselves right now a 9-point lead on the Oklahoma City Thunder. Knock on wood, if they finish this night, they're 6-3. The New York Knicks. What are we watching right now? Look,
Julius Randle and Austin Rivers, Emmanuel Quickly.
Are you seeing an Austin Rivers 6th Man of the Year award before your eyes? Are you seeing an Emmanuel Quickly Rookie of the Year before your eyes? Julius Randle could be most improved player. He could be most valuable player. I said this before the season started, and y'all laughed when I said that the New York Knicks were back. And granted, I was saying it 95% for a laugh, but now it's completely 100% serious. Hit the gas. The New York Knicks are running the table. I am all aboard the hype train. Choo choo. Casey Jones, you better watch your speed. My kudos goes to Tom Thibodeau this week.
The Knicks are going 79-3. Larry, your kudos are up next.
Well, it's funny. I said I'm not really into hockey as much because there's just not enough time. But I'm also a big fan of the Olympics. We didn't get the Olympics this year, but we got World Junior Hockey Championships. And my kudos goes to Team USA. They had 2-0 win over Team Canada, which was a powerhouse Canadian team. I'm not saying this is Miracle on Ice territory, but Canada outscored their opponents 41-4 going into that championship game. And Team USA to win that game 2-0, right? They get the goal from Tarot. They get the goal from Zergis that they just put it all together and stopped a team that was scoring like crazy. I got to give the credit out to Team USA.
DeLuca.
All right. Let's give some kudos out to the real NFL Coach of the Year. Joe Judge. Let me tell you something. You came in here brand new, and you maintained the same personality and attitude all season long, which was positive and effective. And you got responses from your players. I said in the beginning of the season, the Giants are probably going to be about 6-10. They finished exactly 6-10. So he pretty much met expectations. But just the way he speaks after games, the way he coaches these players, the way players respond to him, it's a beautiful thing. Also, the added bonus of him just absolutely ruining Doug Peterson following Sunday night's fiasco was phenomenal. I will never not lose respect for Joe Judge ever because of that. I can also never root for I can also never root for Philly over Dallas ever again. So I mean, sure. I mean, in a realistic world, yes. But let's be real. He just ruined Doug Peterson, even though Doug Peterson's going to be there next year. And when the Giants sweep the Eagles, it's going to be a beautiful thing to see. Just out of pure spite, it's going to be great. And but honestly, Joe Judge, for real, the way you coached the New York Giants this year after 5 years of just god-awful things happening, it is nice to see that the New York Giants are heading in the right direction, all at the helm of Joe Judge.
Your words to God's ears there, Rob, about the New York Football Giants for 2021. I'm going to keep it pretty obvious here for my kudos, and just give my kudos out to the Mets front office, to Steve Cohen, to Sandy Alderson, to Jared Porter, for withstanding the ongoing social media barrage from the impatient Mets fans, myself included. And now Flushing, as a result, has the best shortstop in baseball, and saying that, in fact, they are not done just yet. So kudos to you, Miss Uncle Stevie, Sandy, and Jared. So very exciting times right now in Flushing, very exciting times for Mets baseball. Before we log off for the night, ladies and gentlemen, we just want to let you know what is coming up on the Eastern Observer. We continue our partnership with the New York Professional Scouts Association as Joey Jarzynka showcases former New York Mets and Montreal Expos general manager and the architect behind the run of the 2006 New York Mets playoff run, Omar Minaya. At one point, he was actually the scout whose marquee signing was once former infielder and St. John's University alum Rich Aurelia. That will come to you tomorrow morning at 11 a.m. The Eastern Observer has amped up your wrestling fix with our newest show, the Daily Wrestling News Show, with minutes to bell times, Ryan Joy, every Monday through Thursday, starting at 10 a.m. And then on Tuesday nights, the guys are back. Al Carl, John Smith, Ryan Joy, John DeConti, and Gary Mihefe for the Essential Wrestling Podcast, with coverage beginning at 6 p.m. And then the Primetime Rundown interview series makes its 2021 debut a week from Monday, January 18th, when I chat with the play-by-play man for the NBA G League's Long Island Nets. Kevin Dexter will join me for an intimate discussion on his experiences Monday, January 18th at 8:30 p.m. And finally, Joey, Rob, and I will be back with episode number 47 of the Primetime Rundown next Friday, January 15th at 6 p.m. We will be diving into divisional weekend in the NFL, as well as recapping the first week of hockey action from the local teams in the metropolitan area. And all programming can also be seen on the I-95 Sports Network and Zingo Television Channel 198. And be sure to subscribe to us on Apple and Google Podcasts. And we're also available now on Spotify and iHeartRadio. Ladies and gentlemen, one last time, for my co-host Rob DeLuca, for our special guests Casey Bryant, Larry Protakowicz, I'm Ian Schraier. Enjoy the football this weekend, ladies and gentlemen, and we'll see you next time.